Can you believe it's Sunday? It is 12. We are live coming at you from the centre of London, Covent Garden, if you don't mind, get us. I'm Russ Kane, and this is Men's Radio Station, where men really talk. In the studio, riding the desk like a crazy cowboy, boy wonder producer James Blake, and as ever, he is the Tonto to my Lone Ranger. He is the Fanny to my Craddock. He is Phil Dave.
I have absolutely no idea how I can possibly follow on from such a wonderful introduction. That's one for the show reel, is that?
I think, if you can't get a job presenting, BBC primetime,
after that, no doubt in my mind. You've just escalated the career. Thank you.
It's a sensation, isn't it? I want to just deviate for a second, and joining me, you can just see it if you're watching on Facebook Live. Hello, is Tony Nugus.
Hi, how are you, Russ?
I'm good, and I'm going to come to you in a second because there's loads I want to discuss. But I do want to talk about something very, very briefly before I get on to you. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, you're here. What are you going to do? You're going to say no? You're going to what? No, you're fine. So, this kid from, was it Love Island?
Yes.
Who killed himself? Now, the reason is I don't watch these shows. I can't bear them. And this guy looked like he had everything to live for. He was 26, and some of my pals, Lizzie Cundy, etc., knew him and said he was nothing like the character that was portrayed on Love Island, a show that I have not seen 10 seconds of. So I don't know who he is, but he killed himself this week. At 26 years old, very good-looking guy, very fit and all the rest of it. And, of course, as ever, the Twitter sphere has gone into meltdown saying, oh, what a shame. And I wrote a long piece first thing this morning in answer to a dear friend of mine called Susie Kennedy, who's the number one Marilyn Monroe, not impersonator, but lookalike in the world. And happens to live around the corner, and we go shopping in Tesco. It's showbiz all the way. And we're saying, like, who's to blame? And I wrote in my piece that everyone's to blame because there's tens of thousands of wannabes who want their 15 minutes of fame, whatever the word fame means. Celebrity is a meaningless term in 2019 now. There are, of course, endless number of production companies who they're like a wood chipper. They just need stuff being fed into them, and these kids who come along, they're being fed into them. And then there's the public who eats all this crap up. So I think everyone's to blame. And I was just wondering, putting aside that it's really tragic, and we don't know why he killed himself, no idea, and it's not for us to speculate, but I was just wondering what everybody in the studio thought. And because it's current, and it's very mainstream to what Men's Radio Station is about, depression, and certainly being preventative measures against suicide is something that is a big theme for us. So, James, what did you think?
First of all, I thought it was really, really tragic. Really, really sad to see it happen because he's only 2 years older than me. So it really hit home with me when I saw that. But I agree with you. I think we're all to blame. And I think especially those Love Island people, they are so judged. Like, the whole reason they go on that show is for people to, like, oogle at them and to judge their every move. Yeah. And I think if you're dealing with something like a depression, to be in that situation, that's got to be a hard place to be.
If you had a friend, James Blake, boy producer, if you had a friend.
Use your imagination.
Right, let's go into the realms of fantasy and pretend that you had a friend, okay? Unlikely, but let's move on that premise. So you've got a friend, and he says, James, I'm going to go into Love Island, and you knew he was a bit fragile. If you knew he was a bit fragile...
Do you know what? I did have a friend that went on Love Island.
And?
He is a very confident chap. It was Josh from Love Island.
That means nothing to me.
I don't know when
when we were talking before the show, Frank Carson, you'd never heard of him.
Never heard of him.
I despair.
But Josh from Love Island, for all my millennials out there, he's my buddy. No shout out. But he did it like you thought. He was like, I'll do it just for my 10 minutes of fame. It'll be good fun. And he was actually ended up being one of the finalists. But he's a very confident individual. Hasn't really had any sort of issues with depression and anxiety. Really good-looking chap as well, muscles.
Did he think it was going to change? I'm just curious because so many people argue about this. Did he think it was going to change his life, or what did he think?
I think it has changed his life. I mean, he don't talk to me no more. He's gone very showbiz, you know.
Oh God! Well, that's all going to end. That's all going to end in tears. I guarantee that.
But that's the thing, because what's happened is the man who unfortunately took his life. He is from a couple seasons ago, and what happens with that Love Island thing, and it's slowly happening to him now, is that the novelty wears off for someone in that situation. The Love Island people. It's like, okay, you were on Love Island.
You mean for the public?
Yeah, for the public.
They don't care.
And then, you know, when you kind of have that tumble, if you haven't got a sort of support structure around you of people, that must hit you very hard. Because my buddy now, you know, he's in all the clubs, he's getting free things, he's getting like people.
But it's not
on
life. This. You see, I'm coming on to Phil Dave in a sec, but I don't mean in that way. But I mean what I mean is. A bit late after all these
great
years.
show. Goodbye.
I know, see you, Phil. I know you're disappointed, but never mind. Life's full of disappointments, isn't it? That's the thing. I don't care. You know, life is not about, I can get into a club and get a free bottle of Grey Goose or something. Who cares? I don't get it. It's amazing how people define themselves. Phil Dave.
Well, look, I think first and foremost we should stress that Mike Thalassitis, who we're talking about, by the way, it's very wrong for us to speculate about him, which we've already established. So I'm not going to do that.
None
but
of us are.
What I would
the wider issues.
What I would say is that if you look at a show such as Love Island, and I take that as a very loose example because, frankly, there are so many examples of what I would describe as trash television. It is just beyond appalling. You are ultimately talking about getting a group of individuals together and watching them copulate. I mean, that is what it boils down to.
It's called porn, isn't it?
But that is what it boils down to. You know, you can dress it up in whatever way you want to. Where has society gone that wrong that there is an appetite for that kind of program? Because to me, it's just revolting. I can't understand how anyone would want to lower themselves to that, and to be that desperate for this thing we call fame, to have to go through a process such as a program like that. And again, this is really important in the absence of any one of the producers of Love Island who obviously aren't here to answer for themselves. I'm very aware that I don't want to start sort of disrespecting what is obviously a very popular program. The truth of the matter is we are clearly in the minority. That was ITV2's most popular program for the year, I think a couple of years in a row. So there is obviously something that they are doing very right. But what I would say is that I don't understand where society gets its appetite for something like that. Because I was always brought up with quite, I suppose, Victorian values, as it were. You know, my grandmother was 88 when she died, and I was aged 15. So there were massive age gaps in my family. But the point is that it meant that she still remembered a time where you wouldn't even dare to venture onto the beach without making sure that you were virtually fully covered. So that's the kind of upbringing that I had an exposure to. And a program such as Love Island is just such a bizarre concept to me. I don't understand why society wants to see that. Is it because they want to compare themselves? Is it because they want to have individuals that they can idolize and aim to be like? I just think that if we were, as a nation, told that we should be ourselves and be proud of who we are and what we look like, and not aspire to look like what you see on Men's Health magazine, or not aspire to look at and see what you look at on the front page of Cosmopolitan.
Let's not say anything bad about Men's Health magazine for commercial reasons, which will become apparent over the next few months.
No. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm saying we shouldn't aspire to be like the individuals you see on the front. It really is a case of just be yourself. And unfortunately, these types of programs, such as Love Island and many others that follow a similar example, unfortunately do just the opposite. They tell everybody it's okay to not be okay, if you see what I mean.
I think it comes from, I think Love Island's like glorified social media. It's almost like social media TV, if that makes sense. It's where they go on, I don't know if you've ever watched it, but they all go on there, they're all posing, they've all got their shirts off, you know, and it's all about like how good does my life look and how glorified, but it's not real.
It's sad.
It's sad, and that's why I think it's so popular, because it is that glorified
Tony
thing.
Nugus, our guest, what was I'm just before we get on to you, and forgive me for reading up into your time, but well, there you go. What do you think? What do you make of all this? Because we're of a generation, we look at this and we go, it's crap. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I mean, I will just say that I did a little bit of work with the Samaritans at one time. You know, I worked in the Samaritans, and we used to get, obviously, people ringing us up in great distress, and this sort of thing as well. And you always feel, if you hear of the death of somebody sudden like that in the press today, you always think to yourself, is there something that I could have possibly, if I was closer to that person, is there something that I could have possibly done to have prevented it, And the areas I have heard about, obviously, the person that is going to commit suicide, he's the last person in the room to tell you that that's going to happen, And I think all of this sort of thing is tragic, and you always think, well, there should be a lot more that I could do for that person, as an individual.
I always think if someone's determined that they're going to do it, that's a sad fact of life. Anyway, I was just curious. It's interesting because there's a big age disparity in the room. Me being so young, obviously, and we're all of a same mind about. We're all of the same mind about this, because I was kind of half expecting you, James, to say, "Oh, you just don't get it because you're 102 and I'm 12, and obviously it's not designed for you." But it's not. You see through this ghastly facade that these Herberts put up.
But I do watch it.
No, but yeah. But I mean, I know someone highly intelligent, intellectual, one of the best broadcasters I know. I won't mention her name, Vanessa Phelps, and she watches Big Brother when they're asleep. And I've said to her in the past, what the hell? Oh, it's great. I said, but you're watching people who are asleep. What? That's not even entertainment.
But having said that, I would suggest, though, that actually could be a sign of intellect, because voyeurism is quite an intellectual accolade, an intellectual trait. Because
What?
it's true, because if you have a fascination with wanting to learn from the way other people behave and what they do in life, that's the same kind of argument I put forward when I watched the Jeremy Kyle show. I don't care at all. I don't care at all for the individuals who are on there. But my goodness, there is nothing like watching that show that makes me appreciate more what I have in life.
But that's what
that is
Love
true. I'll give you that.
Island does the opposite of that, though.
Exactly, and therein lies the problem.
Love Island is the
Love
opposite.
Island shows you what you don't have
Yeah.
and what you could be if you pushed harder, and that's where it's wrong. There is enough pressure in society without having programs to make it worse and trying to encourage that. There's actually another thing that I find quite distasteful about all of this, and it's actually something that social media's got to answer for, and I wonder whether or not anyone else thinks the same. I was just reading through some of the tributes to this chap who took his life. Do we know for a fact he took his life, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's not the article I'm reading here, but anyway, okay. But Mike Thalassakis, who's the person we're talking about if you've just tuned in, who was found dead this week, aged 26, there are some of the tributes that I'm reading that have been put up on Twitter by individuals, and I really find it utterly distasteful when certain people on social media use really tragic situations to make themselves look good. And by that,
what? Jumping on the grief wagon.
by that, I mean,
do.
you only have to look at sort of what happened, this horrible incident, obviously, that happened in Christchurch in New Zealand this week. And yet you have people getting online saying, I'm so heartbroken, my thoughts and my prayers are with you, and all of this nonsense. No, they're not. I'm really sorry, because if genuinely
No,
your
I'm with
thoughts
you,
and
Phil.
prayers,
I'm with you.
if your thoughts and prayers genuinely were with the victims in this, you wouldn't be doing it for attention. You wouldn't be crying out to say, look how amazing I am. That's what I believe.
That's a whole different subject, and I really would love to talk about that. But we're going to.
We are. I'm sorry. I'm eating away time.
No.
But
You're not.
This is the kind of example.
You're making very, very valid points, and it is a men's radio station where men really talk, and we're talking about stuff which is important, because whether we like it or whether we don't, the genie is out the bottle. Social media, with all its great stuff and its vile stuff, is there. It's never ever going to go away. It will remain unregulated until the first people really get sued heavily and understand that slagging somebody off on social media, Twitter, or wherever it might be, is exactly the same as writing an article in the Daily Mail. There's actually no difference. It's on a public platform.
Can I just say can I tell you why there is a slight difference? I'm really sorry, because I do have to slightly justify it, because on social media.
You see what it's like, Tony.
Yeah.
No, on social
Trying to
media.
talk to my special guest.
No. You've got to be realistic. On social media, there are millions and millions of users all across the world. If you're looking at an article in the paper, that's written by one person, produced by one source, and then it's up to that one source if they choose to distribute it. The problem is that the millions of users are self-published. They use social media as a platform, but it is not possible to monitor millions and millions, if
that's
not
true.
billions,
but
of social media.
Let me be precise.
posts.
If I write, Phil Dave is a shoplifter. I saw him taking a solid gold Rolex from Selfridges last week. None of which, of course, is true. If I write that,
It wasn't Selfridges.
You're right, and it wasn't. It was an Omega. It wasn't even a Rolex. Get me, I'm not stupid. But if I wrote that, you would have every right to have a legal claim against me, even though I am one author, self-publishing on a social media platform, right? Right or wrong?
Well, yes.
Well, yes.
But you can get social media posts taken down. You can contact them and say this is slanderous.
And the
remove it.
damage is done.
But isn't that the same with an article in the paper?
It is, but then they send a retraction and apology, which is just next to the Greyhound racing results on page 357.
Which no one ever looks at, do they?
Precisely.
It's the same
Right.
thing.
If you want to join in, and please do, we're on Facebook Live, so you don't even have to talk to us.
Though we would like you to.
We'd like you to. We'd love you to. But if you don't want to do that, go on Facebook Live and just type in your comments, and then Phil will read them out in his wonderful mellifluous tones.
Facebook.com/Men's Radio STN, by the way.
Could you do that at less than warp factor 10, Sulu? Just do it slowly.
Facebook.com.
Thank you.
/
Right.
Men's Radio STN, as in the shortened version of station.
Yeah, I think they got that last bit. That was kind of over-egging it. If you'd just like to be really old-fashioned, use what we call in the trade a telephone.
What's that?
It sounds just like this.
0203-290-4411.
I do that because Phil Dave hates it and I love it. 0203 290-4411. If you want to be anonymous, you can. You'll get through to our switchboard. You get through to our mass switchboard, manned by Lily Tomlin, presumably. And hello, can I pay you, Phil? And you can chat to us. Tony Nugus.
Hello.
Right.
Hi.
I apologise
No,
because
that's
I've now
no
taken
problem.
up
No problem.
17 minutes of your life.
That you may not get back again.
Nah,
Well,
no.
he will. It'll be added up. Now, first of all, I want to say thank you for coming. It's lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
It's been a long time. Thank you for coming in because you epitomise everything that we really wanted for Men's Radio Station, Howard Jameson and myself and the gang, because you're here to talk about yourself, much like Phil, but the problems that you've encountered and how you've overcome it. And in your case, diabetes, which is a huge issue for men's health.
It certainly is. I mean, I don't stop still long enough for us to really evaluate what I've actually been through. The 48 years has literally just flown by. So I welcome this sort of opportunity to really talk about something that I've been wrestling with, let's say, and I've, touching wood, I have pretty much got a clean bill of health. I don't know how the hell I managed to do that.
Well, you look, I mean, in all seriousness, you look great. You look slim. We're going to come on to all of that in a minute. But why I really wanted to thank you is there was two kind of main planks that we wanted to try and do on the radio station. And one is getting experts who can discuss, because they're accredited worldwide experts. We've got two of them coming in after your good self. And they can discuss it from their point of view, but it's like Paul Claridge, who came in and very openly talked about his cancer, and it made a huge impact on the listeners and across on Facebook and everything. And you will have the same impact because there's a lot of people I know who are fighting diabetes. I use the word fighting because you've got to, and they want to hear your story, your experience, and how you did it. So over to you, fella.
Thank you. Well, I was living at home when it all began. The first thing to say really is that there's no real connection, I don't think, with my eye history and the fact that I've had squints when I was younger. One of my first recollections when I was about 3 years old was going to the eye hospital with my dear.
You were 3?
Sorry?
When you were 3?
When I was 3 or 4 years old,
okay.
I went to Southampton Eye Hospital with my mother, and I was being investigated for squints. Squint on the left eye, squint on the right eye. And in those days, that would have been middle of the 1950s. It was very sort of awkward surgery, really, at that time to really sort of do squints. Basically, it wasn't an easy
I'm really
procedure.
being thick here, Tony. Is a squint the same as a lazy eye?
Lazy eye, yeah.
So your pupil actually kind of
Yeah, I
wanders?
was like a little more or less boss-eyed, I would say, at the time. I don't know how bad boss-eyed was. I haven't got any real pictures to demonstrate it, but I was, I think, at the time, extremely boss-eyed because the left and right one were right out of sync.
Wow.
So that's probably a red herring to the rest of the eye history, but I think it's worth mentioning because of the things that sort of took place.
But why? Again, it's not an area that I mercifully haven't experienced, but it's not an area that I understand fully. So why is the eye squint correction procedure linked to the diabetes?
I think really from the point of view that when you look at what triggers the diabetes, and Diabetes UK can't really give a definite diagnosis as to how a type 1 like me contracts it. They've got a pretty shrewd idea, but now later on in life I've had narrow angle glaucoma, which I'll go into that a little bit later. I've got high eye pressures, which again are a different sort of area.
Do you feel that?
No.
You don't?
No.
Is that, and do they measure it? You know, when you go to Tesco's and your opticians and all that, and they do the test when they puff the air into you. I hate that. That's how I really freaks me. But it's better than it used to be, isn't it? They used to put something actually against your pupil, which wanted to make me throw up. And that's how they can tell the eye pressure. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. With you.
And later on, I'll skate over that later on when I move up to that. But it's just basically I've been diagnosed with. I've had a right. I've had a right eye operation done to clear the right side of it. I've had. I'm trying to find the well. I've got a 66-year-old senior moment here, but I've got
66. You're a mere child.
But I just,
James is sitting there thinking, please God, let him get through the show. Yeah. That's the difference between James and myself.
But I just had an eye procedure done on the right eye for it's gone a blanco, but I've had
Cataracts?
Cataract. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's not on my score sheet, but I've had a right cataract done. But I'm stuck in the mailing list for the NHS at the moment to get the left one done. Right. But that'll be dealt with. But I mentioned the squint mainly because later on in life I've had these other little eye symptoms that have kind of blotted the copybook a little bit with the diabetes ratio. Some of these are genuinely connected to it, but just through really general information, I just thought it was probably worth mentioning the earlier squints because it could have been where you might find.
Is there some correlation? Are there stats? Are there studies done to say if you've got this, it might lead to?
But generally, with diabetes, it does come with sight loss.
Yes,
it is one of the symptoms. Isn't it? Yeah, they do say they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. I've not, in my research for this today, I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen a lot of accreditation about squints being any real connection to it. I don't think that would be fair to say.
I don't think squints are, but there is definitely, they say if you are experiencing sight loss, it could be because of diabetes.
Yeah, so it may have been rumbling. It may have been rumbling, but I think I'm going to stick with the old faithful. What I have come up with is I was perfectly okay at home. My parents obviously were alive then. I was living at home with my parents. I was around about 18 years old. And that particular year, I got this little comment from my mother that said, you're looking a bit thin, mate. You know, if you don't mind me saying, you look like you lost a bit of weight.
Right.
And believe it or not, Russ, I went down to around about 7 stone.
Whoa,
when I went into
18?
hospital. 18, yeah. I was a little bit of I suppose I was thinner rather than fatter when I was a kid, you know. I don't
7
stone. Yeah, that's the exact weight, you know.
Now, more often than not, people actually have this belief that if you're overweight, or if one is overweight, that affects diabetes.
Yeah.
But does it work the other way as well if you're underweight?
Yeah. Again, I've done some close to home research. So I thought it's good to look over your shoulder and check this when you're doing a discussion like we got here today. And I think it says in one of the blurbs that I got, it says that you could have emaciation. So wasting bones and wasting this, wasting.
Oh my God!
Wow.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
I honestly thought it was an overweight.
I was a thin guy, not a fat one.
That's extraordinary. I had absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
We've got a message on Facebook from Paul, who's messaged in to say, I'm type 2 diabetic. I'm going to the gym twice a day on weekdays. Twice a day. Wow, well done, sir. Once on weekends. And I'm on a strict diet, which is calorie deficit, is the way he describes it, to get down to 11 stone. I'm 5'10" and was 14 stone. Now I'm just over 12 stone, but I have been 16 stone. So Paul is clearly a chap who has grappled with his weight one way or another.
Yeah.
And that is...
Is that very... I'm joking aside, I'm really worried now. Is that... Because I'm 6 foot and I'm not telling you my weight, but I have lost way over half a stone recently and heading down towards a stone. But...
I didn't realise men's radio station was so stressful for you.
You have no idea, Phil. You rock up on a Sunday, everything's great. It's like a swan on a lake. Underneath, we're paddling like crazy. Right. And on that beautiful and rather bucolic mental image, I think it's time to pay the rent.
You're listening to Russ Kane on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Davis. I'm the proud owner of Starter Cigars in Mayfair and Knightsbridge. For the past 60 years, we've been providing the world's best Cuban cigars. When it comes to cigars, there's no other than Starter Cigars from Mayfair and Knightsbridge. We at Starters would like to wish Men's Radio Station every support in their task for helping men's emotional and mental well-being. Check them out. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
Let me tell you about Jermyn Street Theatre. We are the smallest theatre in the West End, only 70 seats. We are a registered charity and not grant-aided, run by a small team of volunteers and trustees. Jermyn Street Theatre is a hidden gem. It combines the comfort and convenience of the West End with the intimacy of a studio. Every seat has a perfect view of the stage, and even a whisper is audible. This is a secret theatre in the heart of the West End, once found, never forgotten.
Slick 50 Barbershop is in Westcliff-on-Sea, Essex. Elaine, specialist in retro haircuts, has been trading since 1987. Music and lifestyle are her inspiration. You can also purchase merchandise and Toot Sweet pomade. The shop is open Tuesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Please call 01702 390 916 to book your haircut. Visit barbershoprockabilly.co.uk, Slick 50 Barbershop on Instagram. Gracias.
Not ready for making tax digital? Struggling to keep up with changes? Or do you simply need a friendly and reliable face to handle your accounting needs? With over 20 years of experience, BBK Partnership in 5 London areas provide personal advice, and all our partners are readily available in person and by phone at times that suit you. Give BBK a call today, 0208 216 2520, or visit our website, bbkca.com.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
And it is Russ Kane, Phil Dave and James Blake with you until the hour of 3 o'clock this afternoon here live on Men's Radio Station. 0203 290 4411 is the telephone number that we would very much like you to interact on us with. Us with? Is that the right way of saying it? It'll do. Let's not dwell on that.
I think they get it.
The reason why we want you to interact is we're talking about three pretty big subjects today, I'd say. We're talking about diabetes. We've got our guest in the studio at the moment, Tony Nugus. Is that right we're saying?
Nugus.
Right.
Okay, so hang on a second. Behind the
How
scenes.
much grief before the show? Tony, back me up.
Because you confuse me.
No, it's your hair gel. I can't. It permeates your brain and it goes into your cortex. How much grief did I take that I would screw up your name by Mr. Phil Dave?
Yeah.
Did I took endless grief.
And has he said it properly?
He has, actually. He's not doing bad, Russ. You know,
Nugus.
That's absolutely
How
right.
tricky can it be?
Yep.
Well, I apologise. Our special guest, Tony Nugus, if you don't mind, is telling us all about.
Well, we don't call you File Douve. I mean, that would
No,
be
you
annoying.
call me much worse than that. He's telling us all about his experience with type 1 diabetes. So we would like to know very much if diabetes has ever affected you or anyone in your family. And if so, what kind of impact does it have on your day-to-day life? Do you find that you have to forever stop and think before you even leave the house? What are you going to do? Have you got your medication with you that you might need? Are you able to just go into a restaurant and have anything you want and then deal with the process afterwards? Or do you have to study a menu before you even walk through a door? Whatever it is, let us know how diabetes affects you and your family. Again, if at all, it might be that you've got such a grip on it. And just to give you a sneaky insight into what we're talking about a little later on in the show, we'd very much like to hear your stories of veganism. It doesn't have to be veganism. It could be veganism, vegetarianism, pescatarianism, if you so wish. Whatever it is, maybe a diet that goes against the proverbial grain. What diets have you tried? How long did they last? And why did you decide to go down that route, if at all? You know, do you believe it's a load of nonsense? Maybe you think to yourself, well, actually, there's so much in the way of great food out there. Why do I even need to bother cutting something out of my diet? Again, we'd love to hear that later on. And a slightly bigger subject, which we're talking later on, which we'd love to hear your stories as well, is addiction. But we'll go into that a little later on. But if you have ever had addiction affect you or your family, please do give us a call, 0203 290 4411, and join us on social media as well, facebook.com/Men's Radio STN.
Thank you. Even I understood all of that. By the way, the addiction, I've been waiting months before we even started this radio station. I've been waiting months for this guest to come on, Cam Adair, and he's flown into the country, and despite being everywhere, all over the media, he's giving us an hour of his time, and I am tickled pink about it because it's a huge subject. Right. Tony Nugus. How dare you come in with your tricky name? So you
I know, I've never understood Tony.
Yeah,
No,
Tony. I mean,
it's a beggar's spell.
T-O-N-E-E. I don't know.
Yeah, something like
right.
that.
So when did you first realise that you had diabetes?
Well, after this little pep talk we mentioned earlier about the weight soaring down, sons do not always take head on notice of what their mums say, you know, so, oh, you look like you're losing weight, all this, that and the other. I think I might have been about 8 stone or something like that before, you know, so I was soaring downwards. I was going into work, doing work in a stock room. I was working in a big department store. I hadn't been working very long, but I thought I'd probably just got dust in my throat or what have you, you know, because, you know, these things can happen. So I went into the restaurant in my break and had one of these. I was into lemonade at the time, which is a stupid thing to drink anyway. Went into the restaurant, drank a little bottle of lemonade, you know, not really gone away, not really disappeared, still not working effectively. And as time went by, this is over a period of a few weeks, I started to drink more in quantity than I ever did. I was living in a pub. I was going out and buying one of these big bottles of lemonade, and I was knocking it back. It was just like that, you know, amazing. Again, I wasn't drinking water. If I'd have drunk water, I might have done myself a favour or three there, you know, it would have slowed the thing down.
But were you, I'm just curious, were you craving lemonade?
Yes. Well, I was craving a drink. I was craving a drink, yeah.
Okay.
Just drinking local poison, as they called it, or whatever you want to call it.
But you weren't saying, I fancy a beer or I fancy a... It was lemon. I I'm just curious, is there a link between, the sugary, because lemonade back then
I was a definite sweet tooth at the time, which didn't help. So I probably fell down and fell over and sort of went, let's go for the lemonade, just something to get into. Because it sort of quenches your thirst for about 3 minutes, and after that you're craving again anyway,
But with flippancy to one side, it actually seems like quite a cruel twist of fate that anyone who has diabetes would also have a sweet tooth. It seems very unfair. It's almost as if here's what you could have won.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure whether that triggered the diabetes. This is the Diabetes UK say that one of the theories that they came up with, although they're not selling it very much now, is that you may have a virus that normally would try and kill flu viruses that come into your body or what have you. So you might have had a cold prior to the diabetes contraction, and then suddenly this virus starts to zap live cells in the pancreas, has an override, zaps the live cells in the pancreas, and that's when your diabetes kicks in. So from that point onwards, you become diabetic. So your pancreas, as in this description I'm giving you, it's shutting the pancreas down. Because after the lemonade content, I was drinking water, I was drinking squash, I was drinking milk. In fact, any form of liquid became the order of the day. And I was trotting to the toilet like Billy-O in the very late stages of it. I was getting up at night time, going down to the toilet about every half hour.
Wow.
Liquid was the order of the day in any shape or form.
Were you able to eat? Were you eating?
Oh, yeah.
So you were eating as well?
Yeah, I was eating.
And your weight at this point was doing what?
I think it was plummeting, because I was getting extremely worried, because I thought I had something nasty like cancer or something like that, because I didn't know what the hell was going wrong. I had an uncle at that time who was, I think he might have been a type 1 diabetic as well. I'm not really sure. The reason I'm not really sure, we didn't get together in long periods of time and discuss my diabetes versus his, but I'm pretty sure he was a type 1 diabetic as well.
So so there you are in this large store. You're in the canteen, you're banging back the lemonade and everything. And then what? When did you finally go to the doctor?
Well, what happened was I was roughly the week before, I was urinating about every half hour. I thought, can't carry on like this, got to do something quick. So my mum got on the phone and said, let's get him down to the doctor. Because we didn't relate to it, the fact that anything like diabetes was the problem. But my mum, God bless her, said, Tony looks so whacked out. I know what I'll do, as mums do again. I'll go out and get him some meringues, because I used to like meringues. No, this is a true story. I'll go out and get him some meringues, because he loves his meringues, always this, that and the other. And I thought, do I want to have this? Because I didn't know I was diabetic, so like a fool.
You just thought this is no yolk.
Yeah, this is no yolk. But
Have you no filter?
No.
Okay,
he's making me cry now, Russ. He's
very cool. You can sue him. He's an independent contractor.
Poor old mum, she thought she was doing right. And there's another little funny story attached to this, which I'll tell you in a sec, was very brief. I knocked back these meringues thinking, there's nothing wrong with me. And I was whipped down I went down to the doctor's, I think, the following day, and he knew straight away what it was. He tested the urine, and it must have been sky high. It's probably in the 20s, maybe even the 30s at that time. I don't know. But
let's stop you there. In the 20s or 30s, on a scale of what?
Yeah, sorry.
What are we talking about? What scale is that?
I should have described hypos and hypers. The normal body would have a level of about 4% sugar before you eat something sweet. So you eat a couple of cakes or what have you, and it might soar the blood up to 7, but the pancreas will kick in, generate sufficient insulin to knock it down to 4 again. So it's 4 up to 7, then down to 4. Well, because diabetics are no longer functioning in the pancreas area, it would just go soaring up to 30 or 40 or beyond. You're sky high in sugar, really.
And in that moment, how do you feel? Can you describe some of the symptoms that you experienced?
At the time, I don't actually, believe it or not, I don't generally feel the effects of hypers. That sounds a bit crazy, but I was very dehydrated and I was trotting off to the loo like a good one. So constant urinating, etc., etc. I have got the list there of what the symptoms are, but
Go on.
I'll just have a,
because people who've got this or think they may have it, or they've got a relative or a friend. This is it's first-hand experience and absolutely invaluable.
Yeah, I've kind of mentioned these in the initial chat, but it's increased thirst, it's frequent urination, so I tick the boxes on that. In children, it's bedwetting in children who previously didn't wet the bed during the night, so it could be a from childhood thing. Extreme hunger, unintended weight loss, so that's me again, irritability and other mood changes, fatigue.
Don't look at me. Don't even look at me. As soon as you heard the word irritability.
Glance straight over my head.
Over us. Fatigue and weakness. Well, that was something that, I definitely really did feel. I think irritability was something as well. Blurred vision, that might have been something that I had again. It's going back to our friendly eyes again, so it's
right.
Could be sort of something
right.
around that.
So
it's really important to stress, though, that if anyone has any of these symptoms or if you're the least bit concerned that you might have some form of diabetes, type 1, type 2, whatever it is,
yep.
Please don't hesitate. Just go to the doctor and get them to check it for definite.
Absolutely, yeah, that's worth doing because, like you say, if something different creeps into the scenario, go and get it checked. It's worth every penny. It doesn't pay. Once you, I was then told that I definitely contracted diabetes, but if you can do it sooner rather than later, you won't have any major malfunctions as long as you can get the sugar back down. That's what you've got to aim for, and that's what I've sort of did shortly after getting into hospital, really. So the patient has to work on it themselves, I think, really.
So they took you, so just walk me through this, Tony.
Yeah.
So once they diagnosed it and once they realised meringues and White's lemonade was not really the way forward, they take you to
used
hospital.
To drink that in secret.
I did. Guess who sang that?
Was it you?
No. Guess who sang it? Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra.
You're an idiot. No. Elvis Costello's father.
Really?
Elvis Costello's father sang the White's lemonade.
Wow.
Amazing.
You wouldn't get this. You see, if we're doing like On Health Now on BBC Radio 4, you wouldn't suddenly get those little nuggets of information.
There's probably a reason for that.
Yeah, there probably is, because they're dull. So anyway, you're in hospital, and they're what? They're rebalancing you, or what do they do?
They called it at the time stabilisation. They're stabilising me, Okay. So I've gone in, but this quick joke was I lived in a pub. My mum was talking to the next door neighbour and said, what was up with Tony the other day? He went down to so-and-so. He said, well, he's got a problem. He's drinking all day. Oh, it's a drink problem, is it? She thought... because
you lived in a pub?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, my parents lived in a pub at the time. So she thought I'd become alcoholic, so it's quite a funny little story.
How aware was, diabetes? Like, was it like now there's lots of adverts about it. There's all sorts of things. Like, was it the same? Was it like really out there? Like, if you think,
It wasn't.
because it's interesting how they immediately go to drinking problem.
Yeah, drink is one of the symptoms of it. But it goes right back. When they were doing checks on it, again, I suppose this research has probably come in handy again because it goes right back to 1552 when somebody by the name of, and that's a difficult one to pronounce, is it Hezi Ra. He's an Egyptian physician documented frequent urination as a symptom of a mysterious disease that also caused emaciation.
Wow.
So, emaciation was obviously the order of the day alongside, obesity,
Did you guys know that becoming thinner and thinner was a symptom?
No.
I had no idea. I put my hands up. I had not a clue.
I didn't realise it was a symptom of. I know that weight can heavily impact on whether or not someone has blood sugar problems or not. But I certainly didn't realise that the loss of weight, because it's the same way that thyroid problems, it's all about these different glands, I suppose, isn't it? But thyroid problems, a massive symptom of that is unexpected or unintentional weight loss. The problem is, though, that people attribute unexpected weight loss with the big C, don't they? So, of course, they start panicking and they think that the worst is wrong with them. But there are so many other different conditions that it could be other than cancer. And that's why I think people just sort of are reluctant to go to the doctors about it. They're almost afraid of what they're going to be told.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might have been in the back of my mind, that suddenly everything's chugging along merrily, and then suddenly you're going a little bit emaciated, you're losing all this weight. God, what the heck's wrong with me, And
I would have thought that was terrifying.
Yeah, it was. Well, it made it worse because when I went into hospital, I was going through this stabilisation period, and I didn't have one of the most tactful doctors in the world because I just said to him, "But okay, well, what's in store?" Because the dietary conditions weren't anything like they are today. You can get virtually everything in a supermarket now, and you can eat it. Because there's so much freedom now. You look on the back of a packet, you see carbohydrate value and everything else, so you can eat it. I'm eating things like semolina, rice pudding. I ate a sundae, one of these little sundaes with a trifle in it, because now you've got a carbohydrate value and I can eat it. But that's now and not then. So going back to then, I was in hospital and I said to this doctor, "Look, can you spell out to me exactly what I can expect, with a life of diabetes?" He said, "Yeah," because I would have been on 2 injections a day then. He said, "You'll be on 2 injections a day for life." And then he walked away. And I was like, it was kind of nervous breakdown territory, Russ, because, to leave you in that predicament.
Was it the thought of having to do the injections, or was it the thought that you were now, I'm going to use the word vulnerable? What was
all of those, I think, the fact that, hang on, will I be able to get on with the injection? Because injections were a little bit not the easiest of things to do. I mean, these days I've got a little plastic pen that I've got in my bag there.
My best friend's diabetic, and when we were out, he has to inject at the table and all that sort of stuff and monitor himself. Sometimes monitors himself a couple of times during the meal, but it's all terribly discreet. And it all looks... I mean, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, certainly not him, because he's like a brother to me. But it's like it's very discreet, and it looks. I'm going to use the word convenient. Forgive me, it's not the right word. But you don't get a whacking great syringe like from the 50s. And yes, you're not. It's not French Connection, James.
Well, there's another. There's another thing. One of my pet sort of discussion areas really is, and I do this all the time generally now. I don't. If I'm having a meal like that, if we were out for a meal, I'd do the same thing. I say, "Russ, I would probably say to you, Russ, do you mind if I just inject, my insulin before we eat?" And you'd probably say, "No, go to the toilet,"
Well, I wouldn't dream of that. I wouldn't dream of that.
I'm in jest, but I know you're a tolerant sort of person. When you're not
Phil Dave, how tolerant
when you're not hitting Phil.
Look at Phil's face.
I don't believe that there is a known scale to describe the levels of tolerance that our Mr. Kane suffers with. However, there is
the most intolerant.
He makes me look tolerant, and that's saying something.
Believe me.
There's a comment here on Facebook from Lee who says, "This is a great subject to discuss." He says, "I'm fortunate not to be suffering, but I know a 12-year-old that has just been diagnosed with type 1. Awful." And he says, "What are the triggers?" Before we get on to the triggers, it's a curious use of the word suffering. Do you look at yourself as someone who suffers, or do you just live with it?
I live with it. I'm now a graduate, using my highfalutin term. I've just done a course for what they call DAPHNE, which simply means it's a dose adjustment for normal eating. And I'm classed now as a graduate from DAPHNE, which means I can actually adjust my injection levels on my own syringe. The nurses are moving away from it very slowly. It's sort of I'm self-caring, I suppose you want to call it that, and that's what my fellow diabetics who are on DAPHNE are now able to do. So I can sort of say if I've got a high constantly, from going up to 15 or 18, I've got to do something about that. So I look at the offending area. It might be all day. So if it's a hyper, which would be what it would be classed to be, if it's 18 constantly throughout the day, I'm supposed to drink about 4 pints of water.
Oh, God.
Wow.
I'm supposed to inject 20 10% of my normal injection level, so I'd probably do it for the next dose that I have, and sort of say I've only got to inject 5, but I'll do 5 every 2 hours. I've got to get that the ketones, because when it gets to about 18 to 20, that's 20% sugar again in the blood. You've got to get shot very quickly of ketones, otherwise you can get a thing creeping in, which is, I think, is called ketoacidosis, which simply means your body is becoming overcome with ketones. Horrible things are becoming fat tissue, growing into sort of nasty big gremlins. So you knock back the water, you do the mini injections to get the thing back down to status quo. You're not supposed to go out and exercise when you're running at 18, because you could trigger something nasty again further happening with that. It can trigger a heart attack or something like that if you mess around too much. So again, I mean, going back to the side effects of diabetes, you could potentially get kidney disease. All of this is really caused by high blood pressure. All of it's also caused by blood sugar levels, high blood pressure, other things that trigger. You could get heart attack or stroke. You know, all of these are demons that can haunt you just by managing the diet, and you know, sort of, it's not as lethal as it appears, providing that you, I suppose, keep on top of it is really the best phrase to sort of sum it up, really.
So in answer to Lee's comment on Facebook, there are numerous triggers, but there are also numerous ways to avoid those triggers.
There should be, yeah. I mean, since I've been doing extra work on, you know, the backgrounds and all the rest of it, of what's currently rife and all the rest of it, there are a lot of people that send questions into diabetes.co.uk to the local community, and a lot of people give advice back and say, oh, I'm getting blood sugar levels of 33%, which is hellishly high. I'm getting blood sugar levels of this. I'm getting blood sugars of that. And they just say sort of simple things back to say, well, increase your dosage. Well, I'm all in favour of that advice, but if you just tell a fellow patient to increase their dosage, what dosage are they going to increase? Do they need to increase their overnight insulin, what they call their basal? Because basal is what you inject as what you call overnight insulin, and that actually works as a background to the daytime doses. The doses you take at dinner times, tea times, are quick acting insulins. You know, so that hopefully will control the lunch you just eaten or the breakfast you just eaten, and the background, the basal, will be working at the back of that to try and sort of keep it all down.
One thing I do want to ask, how conscious are you, if you go out for dinner, how conscious are you of what you eat? Do you really think like, oh, I can't have that, I can't have that, or do you sort
Are you
of
ever allowed to enjoy food, frankly?
Yeah, because if you went out with me, you say, oh, what a bore, he's not eating any curries, or he's not eating any rice, he's not eating any spaghetti. When I'm at home, I tend to eat a lot from packs. And the only reason for that is because it's so much simpler to... I'm on a counting regime again now. It's going back to 10 grams of carbohydrate for the value. So I can eat potatoes normally. I could probably eat rice if somebody prepared rice. But the difference, if they're preparing it or mixing it, you're never quite sure exactly of what the finished...
Do you have a problem with salt? Because my pal, if there's salt in the food, he can't have it. He has to tell whoever's looking after us at the table, could you tell the chef, please, no salt?
Yeah, I've not been made aware of that. No, okay. Don't.
Now, you mentioned something earlier on,
yes,
and Phil's very kindly reminded me, because no one in the room, apart from you, knows what it is. Narrow-angled glaucoma.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, I had a scare from an optician once who sent me packing to Moorfields Eye Hospital and said, I think you've got glaucoma. And it was a shock again, like the diabetes was at the beginning. So I went herring off to the eye hospital, straight out, Moorfields Eye Hospital I went to, actually, embarking. And they said, oh, yes, you have got high pressures in the eye, but you haven't got glaucoma because it's what they call the safe level. I think it went up to about 25, and they say 26, 27 is the glaucoma levels. So I just got away scot-free on that one. Later on in my diabetic life, I had straightforward retinopathy, which is laser surgery, and that is really where vessels at the base of the eye are growing. If those vessels bleed, it can cause a detached retina, which can, obviously cause you instant blindness. So I had that all attended to. It's all sweet as a nut now. It's all perfectly. It looks good. It's all been sealed up. It's all been taken care of. But alongside that, I found that I had. I came back to this high eye pressure, and the doctor actually labelled it narrow angle glaucoma, and it's ocular hypertension, really. And it's called narrow angle glaucoma because it kind of assumes the symptoms of full-blown glaucoma, but I've done my homework on that. I found out that my tissues are not affected. If I wanted to drive, apart from the diabetic restrictions, I could drive a car, I could do anything that anybody else can do. The tissue in the eyes are perfect, but I have to take drops twice a day. I take drops in the morning, drops in the evening, to prevent a
God, your life is a regime, and I guess you must get very used to it. Right, we've got like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You lost 3 stone.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to know, what did you do? Sum it up in 2 minutes, if you can. And I'm sorry to have left it to the end bit.
No, that's fine. No problem at all. I went in, believe it or not, shortly after I got the diagnosis. 2 days I could eat designated regime diet, but they gave me carbohydrate. I put on £7. So it was the recovery was just like that, and I suppose I just carried on. I probably wasn't as conscious of the scales as what I am now, so I weigh every day. It's like saying prayers in my house. We both weigh ourselves every day, and we just check the weight and everything else. But after that, I went on to a regime diet. I was getting the treatment I needed, so I was injecting twice a day at that time anyway, and everything sort of clipped back to normal. But now I went the other way, went up to 15 stone, and that's when the wife and I both decided jointly, so we're both retired now, to lose the weight, and we've lost the weight with the help of those 2 little
quickly, what is the book?
Manuals. Yeah,
the manual is
but the best one I recommend is called Calorie Carb Fat Bible, and I think they bring these out every year, like Guinness Book of Records.
If you didn't get that, the Calorie Carb Fat, I can say the word fat on radio, Bible, this is 2013, but it's obviously that.
It's probably a beast now.
And then the subtext is the UK's most comprehensive calorie counter, which I've used calorie counters in the past. They are incredibly useful.
That's got every food virtually you can pick up in the supermarket.
Is this online or is this a printed thing?
You can order it like from a bookshop. You could just call up Calorie Carb Fat Bible and you find it on there. And I think it's about £10, £15, something like that. But it's got virtually every single food you'd find in an ordinary supermarket, and it's got the carbohydrate value, calorie value, and we work from that sort of Bible value. I've lost 3.5 stone.
Over what period of time?
2 years it's taken me.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Bravo.
That's really good.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, that's really good.
Well done. I mean, you look as fit as a butcher's dog.
I've just come back from Turkey, that's why.
And on that glorious wish you were here moment, Tony Nugus, thank you so much for coming in, sharing your story. I know that a lot of people find that really interesting. I guarantee that your social media will be loads of people, we heard you and thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. This is Men's Radio Station. I'm Russ Kane with the gang. We'll be back in just a tick.
You're listening to Russ Kane on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Davis. I'm the proud owner of Started Cigars in Mayfair and Knightsbridge. For the past 60 years, we've been providing the world's best Cuban cigars. When it comes to cigars, there's no other than Started Cigars from Mayfair and Knightsbridge. We at Starters would like to wish Men's Radio Station every support in their task for helping men's emotional and mental well-being. Check them out. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's radio station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
Let me tell you about Jermyn Street Theatre. We are the smallest theatre in the West End, only 70 seats. We are a registered charity and not grant-aided, run by a small team of volunteers and trustees. Jermyn Street Theatre is a hidden gem. It combines the comfort and convenience of the West End with the intimacy of a studio. Every seat has a perfect view of the stage, and even a whisper is audible. This is a secret theatre in the heart of the West End, once found, never forgotten.
Slick 50 Barbershop is in Westcliff-on-Sea, Essex. Elaine, specialist in retro haircuts, has been trading since 1987. Music and lifestyle are her inspiration. You can also purchase merchandise and Toot Sweet pomade. The shop is open Tuesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Please call 01702 390 916 to book your haircut. Visit barbershoprockabilly.co.uk, Slick 50 Barbershop on Instagram. Gracias.
Not ready for making tax digital? Struggling to keep up with changes? Or do you simply need a friendly and reliable face to handle your accounting needs? With over 20 years of experience, BBK Partnership in 5 London areas provide personal advice, and all our partners are readily available in person and by phone at times that suit you. Give BBK a call today, 0208 216 2520, or visit our website, bbkca.com.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Indeed we do, and you've just missed a whole hour of talking if you've only just joined us. You are listening to Men's Radio Station with Russ Kane, Phil Dave and James Blake, and we have a Russ.
Sorry, why are you doing a dance?
Because and James
What the
Blake.
hell are you doing?
And James
Did you do that at school? Every day they said, if they were taking the register and they went, Blake, and you'd do a little dance.
I do a little, you know.
Ta-da! I'm here.
Hell.
A grand
does
entrance.
does John Humphreys do that?
Can I just say, if you haven't seen Humphreys do that on the Today Show, you've missed a treat. It's amazing.
What the hell?
Oh dear, well you've missed a fascinating hour all the same with our very special guest Tony Nugus, who we have still got here in the studio with us. You heard him talking about his experience with type 1 diabetes. We will get on to our next guest in just a moment's time. However, if you do suspect that you or your family need some sort of help with diabetes, then you might want to call Diabetes UK, and we did forget to give out the number, so if you would like to get in contact, you can contact them on 0345 123 2399. That's 0345 123 2399. And on the subject of diabetes, we've got a comment on Facebook from Paul. Paul says, "Hi guys, what a fascinating interview and insight into diabetes. The symptoms seem very similar to the symptoms I experienced." This is Paul experienced, of course, which of course turned out for him to be bowel cancer. He says that he had rapid weight loss, constant dehydration, etc. And in fact, his oncologist recently said that he would have been a prime candidate for diabetes if he had carried on with his old lifestyle. And he said that in some strange way, cancer probably saved his life. What a statement to make. Good gracious me.
Could that not be the greatest title of an autobiography? Cancer Saved My Life.
Extraordinary.
By Paul.
Wow. Okay, well, there you go. He says that
amazing,
in some strange way, cancer probably saved his life and definitely helped him to avoid diabetes and other such conditions. He says, ironically, due to the treatment and the surgery which he had to require for the treatment, he said that he had to consume sugary drinks and foods to make sure that he had enough intake of the nutrients. And he also says, take heed. If you have any odd symptoms, do go and see your doctor. It could save your life. I mean, that's not too dramatic a way of putting it.
No, it's not.
Go to the doctor. If you suspect it, it could save your life.
It's amazing. It's an interesting... Sorry, James, to interrupt you, but what the hell? The thing is, the thing is, so many of the themes that we deal with here on Men's Radio Station is that if you are too scared to go to the doctor, and I totally get that coming from a long line of cowards, don't be, because putting it off is just exacerbating the situation. And you never know, you could get good news. I mean, it's not always going to be bad. James, I'm so sorry.
And it's free. You don't have to pay, do you?
You're in a very dynamic mood today, aren't you? You're like, first we've got the dance, now we've got the arms extended for the word free. Do you get excited like when the DFS sofa advert comes on?
DFS?
Yeah, there you go.
I get excited when the DFS sale comes to an end.
I think.
Are we ever going to see that?
No, the point about it is what you don't realise, and you've not seen how this plan has all come together for many years, is that Brexit will be finalised when the DFS sale ends. And that's how it's going to work.
So it might be the 12th of never.
The 12th of absolutely never. Right. Our next guest joining us is Tim Bardford, and I'm a little nervous because it's all about a subject of which you've heard me speak many times about going vegan, veganism, and everything else. Tim,
hello.
Welcome.
Hi, thanks.
Hello. And you are the organiser of the UK's largest vegan event. I can't say, cannot ever have imagined me saying these words. The UK's largest vegan event and one of the UK's prime movers in vegan circles.
And now you know why he couldn't imagine himself saying it.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you. Thanks. So you are the manager of Veg Fest UK.
That's right, yeah.
Do you want to expand on that? I can keep reading if you like. I don't mind.
Events.
I don't mind. I can read this. I can go onto Facebook. Whatever you want.
Not the first time I've been met by a little bit of scepticism to vegan. Having spent 35 years now following a vegan way of life, it's quite sort of normal to hear people a little bit sceptical, and indeed a little bit perhaps put off by the whole concept. But it's interesting you were talking about going to the doctor just then. One of the main benefits of following a plant-based diet, which is a core part of veganism,
is there's a cure for it.
Is that it's preventative. And if you use plants in a responsible way, educate yourself, you can actually prevent a lot of these debilitating illnesses. So I suppose my approach the last 35 years is, rather than go and see the doctor, is to look after myself so that I don't have to go and see a doctor. And there's a wealth of evidence now supporting the health benefits of a plant-based diet. At the same time, there's also a wealth of evidence pointing to a large amount of causes of debilitating illnesses, being the consumption of meat and dairy. So from the plant-based diet aspect of veganism and the health benefits, it's something that I think, this generation coming up, the millennial generation, is really getting a grip on.
Talk to James.
And those of us that have been
sitting there,
on this planet, perhaps 50 years or more, I would highly advise to get on a plant-based tip very quickly, because it's got a lot of preventative medicine in it.
But Tim, with the popularity boom in veganism, which we seem to be experiencing now, and it does seem to have come out of nowhere. I mean, I remember, and I'm speaking as someone who's pescatarian, so I've always been frowned upon for following that diet, which is not quite as severe as plant-based. But the point is that with the sudden popularity, or seemingly popularity, of veganism, does that mean you have the last laugh now, that because we've suddenly discovered all of these benefits to it, that you actually are now in a position to say, well, look, I've been doing this for years. I've known what I've known for a long time.
When I was vegan in the early days, in the 80s, especially men would definitely laugh at me. I remember ordering a fruit salad and a mint tea for breakfast once in a cafe, and literally getting laughed out of the cafe by people who are eating.
You're lucky to be alive, frankly, if you did that.
But, the sad thing is that the very people who were laughing me out of the cafe 30 years ago are now stuck with bowel cancer. So am I laughing? No, absolutely not. What I'm doing is advising people to get on this tip as early as possible, cut out that meat and dairy, get on a plant-based whole food diet, and look after your health. But of course it goes far further than just your health. There's a lot of other aspects. And veganism essentially is a social justice movement that's about using animals or putting an end to the use of animals. It's not really to do with health or environment or even the welfare or treatment of animals. It's a movement to end the use of animals. And it's been going 70 years now, this movement. And although we're talking now about 700,000 estimated what we call ethical vegans in the UK, and then another several million people who perhaps follow in pretty much a plant-based diet, I don't think veganism is going to go away in a hurry.
But in the grand scheme of things, 700,000, quote, ethical vegans doesn't actually seem that many.
Well, that's in the UK, and bearing in mind that 70 years ago there's probably about 300 ethical vegans. It's quite a growth curve.
Right, let's talk about you a little bit more, because I always like to drill down in these things. So 35, because you go down to Shoreditch and everyone wandering around with their man buns and plaid shirts and all that crap. Hey, I'm vegan. Wow, really? Sod off. That's what I say. But 35 years ago...
Yeah.
No, it's the guys
cool.
with the man buns and the plaid shirts. The hipsters. Get a grip. Cause it's like, what, you're chopping down trees in Canada? No, get over it. So why did you decide? I mean, 35 years ago, that's a hell of a long time ago, way ahead of the curve. Way ahead of the curve.
I went vegetarian at 18,
Why?
particularly to just piss my mum and dad off, really.
Hey.
It seemed like a really good
There you go.
I was at college, punk rock, 1981. What could I do next? I dyed my hair, I've torn my trousers, I put a safety pin on. No, let's go vegetarian, that'll do. And it was great, actually. Poor my mum, bless her, was very worried. She went to the doctor, couldn't go on Google.
She didn't feed you meringues, did she? I'm just the whole...
But that was what vegetarian, but veganism.
Sorry, that was a really
came-
throwaway comment there. Your mother went to the doctors about you turning vegetarian.
Oh, absolutely. She's concerned about where I get my protein from. She'd also noticed I was looking a little bit pale on Sundays. That was more to do with being up all night, but not to do with the lack of protein. But like a lot of parents, of course, they're worried about the kids. And any dietary changes, I would advise anyone listening that it is worth, getting yourself educated on it. If you're going plant-based, I definitely advise a wide range of what we call a rainbow whole food plant-based diet, which is lots of fruits, nuts, seeds, pulses, grains, beans, these sort of things, and lots of different colours, preferably unprocessed. And when you're eating a wide range of, as I say, what we call a rainbow whole food plant-based diet, you don't really have to worry about meal plans or getting the right nutrients because they're all in there. What you have to do is just eat lots of good food, and that'll take care of itself.
Right, so there's the punk, and you got your safety pin through your nose or whatever, and your trousers are ripped, and you're pissing off your parents. You've gone vegetarian, and then when did you? 35 years ago, you said.
Well,
so what happened?
I was in the early 80s. I was part of the peace convoy, so I was sort of a bunch of anarchists traversing the country, throwing free parties everywhere, fairly living outside the law, I might say. And in 1984, we all got arrested at a rock festival during the miners' strike.
What were you doing?
And indeed, he didn't, and all got sort of put in prison for a little while, like three days in Armley.
Why? What were you doing?
Being an attendee.
Being a vegetarian
during the miners' strike, which is obviously quite
offences against turnips,
an affront to the Tory government at the time.
So right,
but that was also at the time of Live Aid, and I was living in Leeds at the time, and I met a bunch of animal rights activists who introduced me to veganism.
Can I stop you? I'm stopping you there because I can't let that go. Animal rights activists.
Yeah.
Right. And then they always mix the word ethical, and then they do the most diabolical things.
Well, when you say they, do you mean all animal rights activists, or do you mean one or two individuals?
Well, there's a large number.
People
I mean,
who
for example,
claim themselves, who put themselves under the umbrella of I'm an animal rights activist, and therefore I'm going to really mess up your life.
Well, I'm an animal rights activist. I've never messed anyone's life up. I know a lot of animal rights activists. I think that's a little bit of a media slur. I think to go, oh, somebody did a protest, so all animal rights activists.
But hang on a second.
A little bit of
hang on a second. There are some who behave out of line. There are some that behave out of line. I mean, for example, I can't bring my cat to Central London because I'm worried animal rights activists are going to throw paint over him because he wears fur. So there are, unfortunately, there are some, no, but seriously, there are some people who unfortunately undermine a cause.
No, it's like the football. I mean, we've got
There's always a small minority.
Isolated incidents of assaults on football, but there's hundreds of thousands of people going to football every weekend who are not doing assaults on players. So whereas it's disturbing that we have some assaults on players on the pitches, of course, that does not mean, that we should forget about the hundreds of thousands of law-abiding people who go to football who do not do that. And there's hundreds of thousands of law-abiding animal rights activists who do not have extreme behaviour.
What does animal rights
I think the important thing is to understand what is animal rights. What is it? And really all we're talking about is a basic right for an animal not to be used. We're not talking about rights to vote in Brexit or have a say on primary education or healthcare for toddlers or something. We're talking about the one right for an animal not to be used, and particularly not to be bred and killed for profit. And that's basically the underlying ethos of animal rights. So it's a very simple concept that we should afford that one right to all living beings not to use them.
How do you persuade people that?
That's the basis of veganism and animal rights philosophy.
So,
and you don't need to shout in a megaphone to make that. I think animal rights is actually a philosophical position that's best discussed in a calm, considered, coherent environment.
As all discussions are.
And indeed, I understand why you get the odd angry brigade of any belief system or any philosophy or any movement, but we shouldn't allow those one or two perhaps slightly noisy people to overshadow what is actually basically a philosophical principle that we could discuss.
Let me ask you this then. Since we were living in caves, right, and men and women, men predominantly back then, were hunter-gatherers, and it's always been part of the DNA of...
Factually incorrect, that.
What, that we were living in caves?
No, that we've been factually incorrect. I think you were going to go on to say that we've always been eating meat.
Well,
we've eaten meat for, I think, about the last 100,000 years. Since we
that's right, that's true.
We've evolved mainly on a plant-based diet. But that's aside, that doesn't really address what we have today. And what we have today is 70 billion animals being killed for food in the world. We have over 1 trillion fish being killed, and hundreds of thousands of other animals being killed for food, for clothing, for entertainment, and for research. And really, almost all, if not all of this is unnecessary. It's a huge waste of life.
Why are you lumbering in? Hang on.
And whilst we have the alternatives to all of these animal-based options, we should be choosing plant-based options as a matter of course. And if we're not going to choose on a cause of animal rights or on a cause of our own health, we should be choosing plant-based as a matter of priority on environment alone, because of climate change. And we know that livestock farming is the biggest single contributing factor to climate change. The science is agreed, and we are still governmentally, systemically, institutionally, and anecdotally refusing to acknowledge that. And it's us that is creating that problem. It's us that is going to solve it.
As I was about to ask,
a big step towards that.
As I was about to ask, because it's a discussion. So you're lumping in together food, you're lumping in together animal testing, you're lumping in together trophy hunting, and you're lumping in together the fashion industry.
All uses of animals, that's right. Wherever you use animals, if you can find a way of not using animals, that's what veganism is. It's a philosophical position where you try not to use animals wherever practicable and possible.
But what if someone just likes it?
Well, you could say that. What if somebody likes doing anything that we agree is wrong? I mean, if somebody likes doing a number of things, that's what we have prisons full of people who like doing things that we consider socially unacceptable.
What about using a horse, riding a horse?
Well, I think when you come to areas like uses of horse, domesticated animals, I think
having a pet dog,
these are important areas, but I would say that they can cloud perhaps the bigger picture. What I would say is we have to focus on factory farming, destruction of rainforests. The issue of horses domesticated pets and such. These are important issues, but I think...
What about horse racing?
For people... Well, I'm opposed to horse racing. I mean, Cheltenham has seen another clutch of horses died. We've killed 200 horses on the racehorses every year in the name of entertainment. Personally, I'm opposed to that. But I do understand that many people might go, oh, you know, vegans, you don't want this, you don't want that, you don't want the other. I get that. I think the important thing is to not dismiss the importance of something like, you know, horse ownership, but not to let that get in the way of a conversation about, you know, is it necessary to kill 70 billion animals for food every year?
What would we do? Well, let's just try and dice this down a little bit, right? I'm not vegan. I'm totally against trophy hunting. I think it's shocking because it doesn't have a purpose. If we can, how do you argue with this though? If you can save millions of people's lives, as we have with Tony, with the advancement of science.
Yes.
Let me finish the question. Hang on. Let me just finish the question. It's this: is that how do you square the circle? How do you square the circle of scientists who are not all evil lunatics? They're trying to do things to help humanity. All right. Do you put a rat or a mouse on top, above what might be saving Tony Nugus's life?
Well, I think it's not necessarily a fair question, because if you look at the history of animal testing, what you see is, unfortunately, a large percentage of animal testing is very misleading. And then what happens on animals doesn't necessarily translate to humans. What we need to do to answer your question is to develop, which have already been done, far more accurate ways of testing that are far more likely to help people like Tony with finding cures to degenerative diseases, that do not have to rank humans above animals, because now we have the technology where we can do actually far safer testing without having to use animals. And this is the point of veganism, is we realise we're in a world where we don't have all the answers, but we do have a philosophy or an approach, which is a position. So if we have a vegan position, then we would answer that question, just say, let's use the alternatives, rather than to carry on the mass destruction of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of animal laboratories.
What would you do with all the farm
Which,
animals?
unfortunately, especially in the universities, is a huge problem, because a lot of that research is just wasted. It's not really valid. It's not really going anywhere. If you were making a case that you'd done all this research and then you just had to finalise with 100 rats to decide or not, there could be a valid conversation. But whilst we continue to desecrate hundreds and hundreds of thousands of animals in laboratories for testing, no, it's not. It's wrong. I'm opposed to it. I think it's morally reprehensible that
Tony,
we should
how
do that.
Tony, how do you feel? You've got type 1 diabetes, right? You versus a rat. How do you feel? Well, no, that's what it boils down to.
You're not answering the question now. That. You haven't dealt with what I've put to you at all. I've just said to you that there's no need to. I don't think you dealt with what I've said. So why are you even asking that question?
Because here is someone who, thanks to medical science, right, thanks to the advances of medicine, is sitting here today.
So what about the science that's had the opposite effect, and all of the medicine that's been tested on animals that has then really damaged humans? How do you reconcile with that?
What would that be?
Well, you research it and you find out for yourself. You research it, you find out, and you will
very
find,
patronising.
and anybody listening, that you will find that if you research this area, unfortunately, the science you're talking about has badly backfired on a number of cases, and that's a fact.
But it has also done this, you got to take the good with the bad. It has done a lot of good.
What we're saying is there's better options that do not involve testing on animals.
But what are these better options? Testing on
I'm
people?
not an expert in this area, but I know for real that experts in this area have developed these, and they're at the cutting edge of science and technology. For instance, testing on the skin, where they now grow the skin in vitro in laboratories instead of testing on animals. They grow human skin, they test on the actual human skin in vitro in laboratories because it's a more accurate a reflection of what will happen rather than testing on a rodent that is very different in the scientific makeup
But maybe
of a human.
we wouldn't have got there if
It's
it wasn't
possible,
for what came
but it's where we
before it.
go from now.
Yeah, obviously from now we're in a position
And
to
I
be
don't
more
think
fruitful.
that animal testing should overshadow the big question. And this is what the danger of going down these routes. We could have a discussion about animal testing, but in the bigger context of animal use, animal testing is a very small part of the abuse and oppression of animals right now. You know, and although it's a very important one, I don't think we should reject the whole concept of veganism because we have a debate about animal testing. And I do think it's a valid one. I think it's a very valid. I do understand people who support animal testing, and I have done myself in the past. And it's only recently I've changed my position, partially by doing the research myself and getting a bit of an education about it.
You mentioned earlier on about sort of how any valid argument comes through a discussion about it, and a healthy discussion at that. You seem to get, though, quite annoyed, shall we say, at any scepticism thrown your way. Why is...
I've had 35 years of it. You know, the amount of times I've sat through people picking me apart, trying to find loopholes in veganism. After a while, you do get...
No, but that's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm doing. It's not what we're doing. It's not what I'm asking. I'm asking where your passion stems from. You know, why does this mean so much to you? Which it clearly does, and no one, for the record, is knocking that.
Well, it doesn't mean that much to me. I mean, I'm an individual on the planet who's been faced with a set of circumstances like everyone else, and we're trying to do our best to come through this, provide a future for our children and grandchildren. I do think it's important that we get on top of this use of animals, that we stop using animals. We know the livestock farming is creating such climate change damage, and you know, I feel passionately because I want my grandchildren to have a world to live in.
What would you do, which I was trying to ask about 10 minutes ago, what would you do to the animals that are on the farms around the world now?
Well, animals on the farms will die out in their natural lifetimes if they're not slaughtered for their body parts. So in time they will die out, but we wouldn't breed more. That's the point.
What would all the farmers do?
So
what would the farmers do?
Farmers would start growing, as they already are, plant-based solutions, so things like hemp. Big growth in hemp in the UK right now.
Because you have a hemp company, right?
That's right.
And what does the hemp company do?
We sell body care and hemp seed.
Body
care.
What is that?
Shampoo, moisturiser, body care,
right.
Toiletries.
Made out of hemp?
With hemp oil, yeah.
Okay.
So it's very good for the skin. Hemp has got a lot of nutritional benefits. So what we'd like to see is government supporting farmers to transition to sustainable plant food crops. Things like oats. We could be oat milk. You could grow oats everywhere. The infrastructure to produce then oat milk. We could be feeding our kids oat milk, which is a lot better than dairy. It'd be good for the farmers too.
One of the beautiful things, though, about the world we live in is that there's room for many different views. Couldn't it be that people could just coexist and
I think that's what the animals
plant-based diet, or whether or not sort of you are an animal lover, whether you're someone who believes that animals should be bred for products? I'm not saying I'm one, but I'm just saying, isn't there room for both?
That it's okay to kill animals and breed them for profit, that's for you, but I would disagree with that.
Okay.
I think that the animal doesn't want to be killed.
Well, this is obviously quite a heated discussion here on Men's Radio Station this afternoon. We'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Please do join in the conversation if you've got anything to say about veganism and indeed animal-based products. 0203 290 4411 is the telephone number. I think we need a breather.
Listening to Russ Kane on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Davis. I'm the proud owner of Starter Cigars in Mayfair and Knightsbridge. For the past 60 years, we've been providing the world's best Cuban cigars. When it comes to cigars, there's no other than Starter Cigars from Mayfair and Knightsbridge. We at Starters would like to wish Men's Radio Station every support in their task for helping men's emotional and mental well-being. Check them out. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's radio station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
Let me tell you about Jermyn Street Theatre. We are the smallest theatre in the West End, only 70 seats. We are a registered charity and not grant-aided, run by a small team of volunteers and trustees. Jermyn Street Theatre is a hidden gem. It combines the comfort and convenience of the West End with the intimacy of a studio. Every seat has a perfect view of the stage, and even a whisper is audible. This is a secret theatre in the heart of the West End, once found, never forgotten.
Slick 50 Barbershop is in Westcliff-on-Sea, Essex. Elaine, specialist in retro haircuts, has been trading since 1987. Music and lifestyle are her inspiration. You can also purchase merchandise and Toot Sweet pomade. The shop is open Tuesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Please call 01702 390 916 to book your haircut. Visit barbershoprockabilly.co.uk, Slick 50 Barbershop on Instagram. Gracias.
Not ready for making tax digital? Struggling to keep up with changes? Or do you simply need a friendly and reliable face to handle your accounting needs? With over 20 years of experience, BBK Partnership in 5 London areas provide personal advice, and all our partners are readily available in person and by phone at times that suit you. Give BBK a call today, 0208 216 2520, or visit our website, bbkca.com.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
This is Men's Radio Station, where men really talk. Manning the desk as ever, boy wonder producer James Blake, with me to my sidekick, wingman.
Oh, thanks.
I like that. Yeah, but we don't need to be standing next to each other having a slash. Is Phil Dave.
Good Lord.
Still staying here. Well, that was the movie. Don't you remember that?
No, I was thinking.
Oh, no, it was
when
the
you said
anecdote.
wingman, I was thinking sort of more angelic and has got wings.
No. Wingman. Wingman is from Top Gun. But the best thing was Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer was.
Well, I've stepped into the danger zone. I'm quite sure.
Yeah, and Val Kilmer was in London, and he was in the loo. And just typical British humour, the guy turned to him next to him at the urinal and went, "You can be my wingman anytime," which made me laugh a lot. Tony Nugus, who spoke so passionately and eloquently and helpfully about his type 1 diabetes, has decided to stay. And with us is Tim Bardford, who is been speaking with some degree of passion about his belief in being vegan. Tell us about your hemp company.
Yayo, yes, the hemp company. Well, we started our first.
Why is it called that?
Yayo.
No, why is it called that?
No particular reason. That's just the name of the company.
Does it have a meaning behind it, though?
It doesn't, no.
Okay.
So Yayo, which we founded in 2002, was the second hemp company I started. Started my first hemp company back in 1991, or rather was helping my colleagues set up what was then called the House of Hemp. So I believe that was the first hemp company in the UK for somewhere around about like 150 years. So then in the 90s, we opened a hemp shop, started a hemp clothes label, sort of pioneered in many respects the whole sort of what is now becoming quite a hemp revolution. It's beginning to gather pace. And we find this, that, you know, when you come out with something that is truth, it lasts, and it starts small, but it grows and then it builds. And to this day now, we're harvesting somewhere like 30,000 or 40,000 hectares of hemp, I believe, in the UK.
Wow.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know how I can go into this, but I'm just going to go for it. So, what's the difference between hemp and marijuana? Because aren't they the same thing? Or,
yeah,
I don't
hemp is, when we talk about hemp, we're talking about industrial hemp, which is for use in body care, nutrition, textiles, ropes, plastics and such like, biofuel.
And the founding fathers of America also all had hemp farms.
Indeed,
but yeah.
and this hemp making paper, indeed.
Yeah.
So this is what we call industrial hemp. When we're talking about cannabis with two components. One is THTC, which is what we smoke for recreational purposes, what's known as marijuana or cannabis or weed.
Not that we condone that, but
now that we have also this new development, which is the CBD, which is the medicinal side, and CBD is a compound also found in cannabis. So what we use, though, particularly our company Yayo, we are really about the hemp seed and the nutritional content of the hemp seed.
Does the
so
CBD...
there's no psychoactive or medicinal compounds in the hemp that we use.
But does the CBD come from hemp, or does that come from...
Well, they're all the same. Cannabis is the plant. There's different strains.
Yeah.
So it's a way... I mean, cannabis hemp is a generic word.
It is...
When we're talking industrial hemp, we're not talking CBD or THTC. When we're talking CBD medicinal, we're not talking industrial hemp or THTC. And when we're talking THTC cannabis, we're not talking CBD medicinal or industrial hemp. So it's really three strains of the same plant.
And one of them is just has industrial purposes, like that can be used
That's
to make
right. Yeah, it doesn't contain CBD or THTC to any significant quantities.
Degree.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the hemp that we use is the seed, and that's the nutritional benefits, which is essentially the content of high protein content, which of course for vegans is great. Talk about 33% protein. And we're also talking about 33% essential fatty acids. So your essential fatty acid, your gamma-linolenic, alpha-linolenic content is very high in hemp. So if you're eating hemp raw, fresh, you get a really big...
What's it taste like?
Benefit. It's great in smoothies, actually. My favourite is to put a pack of hemp seeds in with a couple of dates, banana, some coconut milk, a couple of strawberries, and you've got this lovely kind of beautiful thick hemp smoothie. Incredibly nutritious, very easy to digest, and of course the fats, and they're very good for the brain. So, essential fatty acids is really important for mental health as well as physical health. The role of essential fatty acids is something that's really come to the light over the last 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, speaking of food, your companion here, your chum, has...
Wonderful Karen. Thank you, Karen.
Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Has very kindly brought in some food.
Karen has brought in some food, which looks like cakes and stuff. Karen, do you want to talk us through?
I don't want to give anyone the impression that here at Men's Radio Station we are in the least bit shallow, but when there is food in the vicinity, we're always happy.
Yeah, so Karen is now sitting in our guest spot. If you're watching on Facebook Live, you will see that.
Hey, Facebook. Love a bit of Facebook. Hi, everybody. Thanks for allowing me as a lady to be in the Men's Radio.
Were you on hemp this morning?
I love it in my smoothies, a little bit of dairy-free milk, just some bananas, or I might go all the way. And that means I might have my kale, my greens, a little bit of alkalized water, banana, and a bunch of hemp.
How much time do you have on your hands? Christ.
No, honestly, I bet I can make my smoothie faster than you make your cup of tea.
I doubt that.
No, I can.
Trust
definitely.
Me.
Chuck it all in, whiz it up with a good blender.
Nothing comes between Russ and his tea.
Nothing.
But what do we have?
What
do we have before us?
Right.
Because we've got some very
quiet and
interesting...
retiring. Karen, tell us what the hell have you brought in?
Yeah, we've got some very enticing.
Let me see.
Now, if I tip it up, it might go on the floor.
Round the corner, you'll be delighted to know, are my friends at the Redemption Bar, and I will tell you something, that every single thing is completely dairy-free, egg-free, animal-free. It is not taste-free. What have you tried?
Nothing.
So in other words here,
I don't like to eat when I'm talking.
But in other words here, this is totally vegan friendly.
It's totally vegan friendly. So that lovely chocolatey thing, as far as I know, is a chocolate peanut butter cup.
Which will surprise a lot of people because, of course, the first thing people think of is chocolate. Oh, you can't have it as a vegan. Now, of course, natural chocolate you can.
You can, definitely. And more now, people are realising, hey, we've got to cater for the vegans if we're going to have a profitable business. And dairy-free chocolate is booming and it tastes wonderful. And there I've got a selection.
Can be quite bitter, though.
It depends
like
what you
life,
mix it
Phil.
with.
It
depends
really
what
looks
you mix
good and
it
it's
with.
really bitter.
And also on top of there, I brought in a selection of balls for you.
Oh, there you go, Dannon. Men's radio
Excellent.
station
Well,
where
let's-
men's really needs balls.
Thank you. Let's divulge a little more then into these, quote, balls. What are they then, sir?
Well, they're typically mixed up with a whole mixture. There might be some different kind of nuts and dates, maybe
sure.
some cacao powder,
Some
maybe
what?
some.
Some
It's
what?
like a healthier chocolate.
Right, hang on.
Healthier
Can we
Hang on a
offer
second.
our guests
Yeah, I was going to say.
Well, I will
the cuppa over
say-
here in the corner.
I will say, just in case Tony is wondering, because my son has type 1 diabetes, the balls are going to be a very low carb. The chocolate peanut butter will equally be fairly low carb, but I wouldn't suggest that you have the whole
Fine.
one.
Let's
I would
cut this up a bit.
suggest, having half a ball.
I'll take one of
Well,
one of a
better
half.
than none.
Let's try and cut some of this. Oh, actually, do you know what? Cutting this
Only
up is
James
easier
is
said
getting
than
all
done.
this. James and the
Yeah.
Phantom, I don't care.
Okay, I'm really sorry,
Right.
but apparently the chocolate is a little more solidified than I thought, so maybe we won't go for the
You
chocolate.
can't
one.
even cut it, can you?
No, well, I
Because
can't
you're a
with a
vegan.
plastic
You haven't got the
fork.
strength.
But anyway, but there you go.
It's, not, it's a
Tony-
wooden fork, isn't it?
It's plastic, or it's.
So basically, what
Have we met, you and I? We haven't met, have we?
I did wonder.
No, we've met somewhere. I can't think where it is.
Yeah, where would that be, Rob?
Probably on a farm when we were slaughtering animals. I don't know where it was. I don't know. I'm just being.
Well, I tell you what, where we need to meet again, because
we?
I need to get all of you guys free tickets to Veg Fest.
Do we?
Hey.
You
Do
have
Do we?
to come
James,
along.
James would go. Phil
Now-
might.
I'll go to
I'm
Veg Fest.
Sadly, probably not.
No, I feel that you will
where,
make
Where is it?
the most wonderful vegan. You are going to be my biggest challenge yet, because I do
Yeah.
coach journalists
It's not the
to
first
be
time I've ever heard
vegan.
that, is it? Biggest challenge yet. Where is it?
Veg Fest is coming up in Brighton next weekend.
Brighton.
And then we're coming to London in October.
So you're at Olympia, aren't you?
Yes, we're in London Olympia and the Brighton Centre in Brighton.
Couldn't you compete if you? I tell you what, Karen. If you could combine like the classic car show and Veg Fest, I'd be there. Or like the London Book Fair, so I can see how my book's doing. And Veg Fest, I would be there. Veg Fest on its own. It's not having a magnetic pull. I got to
Not
tell
to you. Well, look,
no,
it's
but it will
healthy
to thousands of
foods,
people. No, I get that. It
Naughty
will to-
foods, wonderful speakers. I mean, I get the absolute privilege of sharing the stage with Jasmine Harmon, with Peter Egan,
Peter Egan,
great
Peter Egan,
inspirational speakers.
Peter Egan's one of my personal heroes, and
He
I
is
like him a
incredible.
lot.
But you know what he said, and I'll have to get him in for you then. He said that it's now defined his life because he's gone vegan. It's the best thing that's ever happened to him.
I like him a lot. He's a great actor, and of
Yeah.
course he is in Unforgotten, written by the great Chris Lang, who I've become sort of socially friendly with, and I'm a big fan of their work. So
Right, so,
terrific.
now I've just chomped down on something here, which I'm thinking I'm tasting dark chocolate, and I'm also tasting coconut. Is that right? Is that all the ingredients there are in this?
I think there might be some dates. Now, how are you feeling?
Yeah,
Do you
dates, because
feel?
I couldn't quite understand where the consistency
Has his hair
was.
gone curly? hasn't
No,
it?
I couldn't understand. No, I couldn't understand where the consistency was coming from, because it didn't.
Yes.
It tasted a bit like melted chocolate, but
Yeah.
it's not melted,
Now,
and that's
the good
obviously
thing
the date.
is it's sugar-free as well.
But hey, look at
Now,
that!
can you believe?
You lost weight?
Can you believe that that's sugar-free? Has anyone tried that chocolate peanut butter cup?
No.
Because if not, it might well disappear as I leave
Where?
the studio.
This is steering with
me.
you, right? So Veg Fest. Talk us through Veg Fest, because you've taken over. I'm presuming it's the whole of Olympia. Which, if you don't know where Olympia is, if you're listening to this in California and never even heard of Olympia, it's freaking gigantic, right? So how many people are you expecting? I mean, a lot. Apart from, I know a lot, but
Well, I mean, we can have up to 15,000 people
At any one
everybody
time?
At any one time over the weekend.
Yeah.
People love it. They're buzzing. They're queuing up at the door before it opens. We have to say, haven't you got homes to go to? You've
haven't
got
they?
to leave.
Have they got homes to go to? And this is the
They
question.
don't want to leave, but we've got inspirational speakers, the top experts from all around the world. We've got athletes there. We have got wonderful cooks. We've got me.
if only
Come
you-
and have a chat with me and my
What the hell you were going to
wonderful
say there for a second?
celebrities.
Where are you going
But
with
the
that for a moment? There?
food blows everyone away.
Life
Food
flashed
from
before
all
my
over the
eyes.
world.
Yeah, go on.
You can have your raw stuff, you can have your smoothies, your juices. Also, you can have the biggest burgers, you can have the naughtiest chocolate cakes. Absolutely.
Why are you flashing your eyes when you say
anything.
naughtiest, and then you're flashing your eyes and raising your eyebrows like something's going to
Because
happen
it's fun.
if I eat
Who
this
like-
chocolate cake?
Who doesn't like chocolate cake, and especially
I
when...
actually don't.
I was going to say now.
Russ, for God's
No, I don't eat
sake,
dessert.
What pleases this
I
man?
don't get
What pleases him?
Everything pleases him. I don't eat desserts. I don't eat desserts at all. I don't eat cake.
What do you like to eat?
What do I like?
Yeah.
What my favourite... Well, I'm not going to tell him.
No, tell me.
Him in the room. We can bugger off and I'll tell you. I like everything.
What did you have for breakfast?
What did I have? What did
Yeah.
I have for breakfast? I had a protein shake.
Well, you know what? What would make that better? Chuck in some hemp
Not paying for my protein shake. That would make it better.
Dairy-free milk, which is healthier for men.
I don't put milk in.
So what do you put in your
Water.
That's what I do. Is it a green
What,
smoothie?
green water? Is it green water?
Not
No.
green water.
I've got normal water. I got normal. No, it's not a green smoothie.
What do you have in your smoothie?
Nothing. It's not a smoothie. It's just it's a protein shake.
So protein shake and water?
Yes, that's what I have.
What does that taste like?
It tastes fine.
Well, I
Speaking
would
of-
say
speaking
So hang on a minute. So
that it
you're
just
pulling
doesn't
a
taste-
so you're pulling a
tastes
face.
pretty boring to me.
Doesn't taste boring to me at all. See, you're pulling a face. It's the amazing thing about vegans, though, isn't it? It's like you got to be right, and everyone else has got to be wrong.
No,
I'm
just
saying to you, it tastes okay.
I'm
saying it tastes okay.
My protein shakes taste so good. I feel a bit sorry for you, Russ.
No,
I'm
you
going to
don't.
come to yours and make you a really
No, you're
nice,
not.
tasty.
No, it's very sweet of you, but you're
protein
not.
shake.
Trust me, you're not coming to mine. I'm happy with it, and I'm in a hurry, and it does what I need to do. It's got all the ingredients, it's got all the protein, it's got the health stuff in it. That's fine. Then I went and had a coffee. Am I allowed to coffee?
Anyway,
Yes.
speaking of taste, I've just nibbled into one of these other things.
You are a gannet.
No, hang on a second.
I think he's eaten the whole box.
Yes, I know.
Share them.
I am sharing.
Excuse
Excuse me.
Tony, have you had one yet?
Tony's had
Yes.
one of these. Now, Tony, what flavours were you picking up on this? Because I'm testing citrus, I think,
Well,
with this.
Very citrusy.
I'm not the best
You like
person to
chili
ask,
Goulden.
really, because I don't tend to eat those sorts of mixes, if you see what I mean. But I think there's probably like a date or something in that.
Yes,
So
definitely.
date's probably
I think
binding
so.
this as well.
To kind of bind
Yeah.
it all and give it some sweetness.
And then it
Yeah.
seems to be coated with a layer of nuts or something like
yeah,
Yes.
I'd say nuts as well.
I think you're enjoying that. It's like a
It's-
a wine connoisseur.
No, do you know what?
Karen,
This is-
it's free food.
I told you, we're not shallow.
With Phil Dave, if you combine in one sentence the word free and food, you have him for life. He's going to be following you
It's
home.
absolutely
loves
nothing
you.
to
He's
do
in
with the
love
fact
with you
that you
now.
make me do a show in the middle of lunchtime on a Sunday. Nothing to do with that
I
at all.
didn't make you. I didn't kidnap Mr. and Mrs. Dave, your parents, who are probably listening. They're charming.
With shame.
It is the shame. It is frankly the shame for the rest of your life. This is your penance.
But this does, in some really strange way, and I don't know whether or not it is the citrus, it's got some sort of almost seasonal taste to it, as if it could be a really nice snack to accompany
gonna
maybe
say,
the
it
festive
tastes-
time of year.
Yeah.
It tasted that way
Oh,
to
for
me,
me-
Phil. You know, it tasted, had a nice sort of level taste to it. You know, and I didn't dislike that at all for something
Yeah.
that I don't normally eat. You know,
Well, they're
so
wheat
it's,
free, they're gluten free, they're sugar free. It's just a whole bunch of nice stuff that's blended up that's going to keep you a bit full. And the best thing for me is nothing or suffered or died for it. I think it tastes good.
Well,
Apart from James,
the listenership,
choking.
the listenership has slightly suffered because my mouth's been sealed together. But
well, no. I wonder what. I thought I'd gone deaf.
You are.
Just say no. You can't do that. You can't do that gig. What? So give me the dates of the Brighton gig.
Brighton
Veg Fest? Yep.
is this coming weekend, 23rd, 24th.
Right. Okay.
And, of March. And Veg Fest London is in October.
October 26th, 27th.
26th, 27th.
Plant Powered
Yeah.
in February.
February. So we're coming back to Olympia.
Plant.
Yeah.
And what is that? What is that? So that's February 2020.
Yeah.
Don't wish my year away yet.
I know.
It's rushing by. And what is Plant Powered?
Well, it's a similar sort of concept, but taking it to a slightly different level. Really, maybe focusing more on healthy eating and food and how fantastic plant-based food can taste.
And will you have people giving demonstrations on how you actually do make these?
No,
fine
that's not your question.
Yes.
Will there be freebies?
I know,
Why don't
I
you
was just going to say,
you
yes,
know,
there'll
you
be
are
freebies.
as transparent as a
we
window.
we will get you the freebies. I'm going to send you a press ticket and I will put on there, give this guy loads of freebies.
Now look, if I promise you I will not have one free sample, I genuinely am interested. Will there be? It's all well and good
Phil,
to
just
bring in
poke
this
my
nice
eye out
food.
with your nose, you liar.
Rush,
You
shush.
know.
Right, it's
Don't
all
believe
well
a
and
word. I've known him
good.
forever, don't.
It's all well and good bringing in this really, and I've got to be honest, it tastes nice. I'm sorry, I'm fine that
Don't
people
have
can
to
be skeptical.
apologise.
No, because I'm sorry if this doesn't
We're
agree with Russ, but it does taste very nice.
Pass it over.
He
There we go.
hasn't
Right.
tried it yet.
No, I
I
know.
don't disagree. I haven't tried it
know.
yet, for Christ's sake.
There we go. Right, okay,
Let's
so
see,
you
I
try
think
one of those.
The peanut butter cup.
No, I like the
but
peanut butter. I'm going to break it up.
Okay, so right, Russ is
going in.
it's a bit of a mouthful. Someone needs to actually.
I'm used to that.
I was going to
Don't
say
worry.
habit of a lifetime and all that.
Right,
but
here we go.
look, Russ is going to
I've
try
really
the
screwed this up.
Russ is going to try the peanut butter cup, and whilst he's doing that,
Oh man, peanut
it's
butter. Love peanut
all
butter.
well and good.
I never said I didn't like peanut butter. I love peanut butter.
It's all well and good to bring
And
in
it's
this really
vegan.
nice food, but it's
Yeah.
obviously
What do you like
prepared
about
by
peanut
people.
butter?
It's obviously
Yeah.
prepared by people who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's not very easy. It's all very easy to say to people listening to this, go plant-based, but actually they wouldn't have a clue how to begin.
Well, you know
so
what? Yeah,
is there
you're
going to be
right.
someone actually demonstrating how they
Absolutely.
can
We
do
have
it?
the best demonstrators there. You don't have to pay any extra money. The cost of the ticket is just literally peanuts.
Well, you've devoured that. Good gracious, right?
Not enough to go around. So, yeah, you are quite right. But I think that's the great thing about VegFest. You can come along at your leisure, have some fun, listen to some speakers, and really get all of the information that you need if you want to now make that decision and be plant-based.
What made you that decision?
Well, I went vegan, I would say about 25 years ago.
Really?
And, yeah.
No, it's a long time because
Yeah.
most people say, well, I went vegan 6 months ago.
I know. But we're just seeing such a massive boom. And I think, it's a whole mixture of things. But I would say in the past 18 years, things have really moved forward. VegFest started 18 years ago. So is that a coincidence? Then we've got, social media. People are sharing their wonderful pictures. They're sharing how they cured themselves of different illnesses. And that's coming from them. And I think, people
And that's
are
important to
seeing-
stress that's coming from
it's
them.
coming from them,
So-
these people are talking about their stories and how they feel. And also, some videos that none of us like to see about slaughterhouses, and most of us want to turn them off, but it's a whole different mixture.
Let me be very straight with you, all right? Because I think Tim thinks I'm way too hardcore, and there we are. But you can't get on with everybody. But this is the truth. This is the truth, precisely. And this is the truth of the matter, that if I went to an abattoir, I know perfectly well, and I've never lied to myself about this, I'd never eat meat again. I know that, all right? I know that. I'm perfectly aware. And so if there's a level of hypocrisy about it, well, so be it. But I'm honest enough to say that. I don't assume that my steak, which would probably be my favourite thing, my steak arrives and it actually looks like that. I know where it comes from. All right? And over the years, I've become less comfortable with that. I'm nowhere near, and I will never be, like you guys, ever. It's just, it won't happen.
Said
But-
every vegan ever. And Gordon Ramsay. Yeah. Gordon Ramsay said that.
Gordon Ramsay said till
Well,
But is he vegan? No.
With respect to Gordon Ramsay, if you want to use him as a barometer or indeed
wouldn't
an
use him as a
inspiration,
barometer to know what the weather's doing,
or
frankly.
indeed an inspiration, I'd maybe
I really
suggest
would think
otherwise.
it's like...
We'll never be vegan before that. Many times.
Yeah.
I'm not saying...
Yeah.
Oh, well, never say never. Never say never. It's
You just said it twice.
Oh, poor Ross. Let him get his
Have
words out.
Have you got a piece of cake to shove in your gob?
I have actually.
Good. Well, why don't you do that? Shove it in your mouth, and then we get on with the conversation. So, what? It's what now?
Yeah.
Well, you're dressed for summer, and you're hot.
Oh, well, thank you, Ross. You're not so bad yourself.
Yay! Vegan. Who says vegans don't want on the pole? So, what I'm saying to you is that it's my job to try and drill down on these things. So I'm not. Are you really that hot? Yeah. By the way, waving your arms about is going to do absolutely
I'm
nothing.
getting a little bit of fresh air.
I tell you what, let's see. We can get that door open. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Open the door, Tim. Open the door.
A bit of fresh air.
Yeah.
There you go.
And there we are. Now we can hear Howard and Howard and our team yakking from outside. So, there we are. Now it's nice and nice. Now it's chilly.
Little breeze.
Well, it did get a bit heated in here. So.
Oh, it's not a question. Well, no one's ever going to agree on everything. Otherwise, the world would be really very boring. But I'm very realistic about this. But the trouble is that the answer to your question earlier was what do I like? Right, I don't eat desserts. I don't like that. Do I like a cheese board? Absolutely bloody love it.
Oh, I love it as well. Definitely.
I love it. Well, how are you
vegan
able?
cheese
What's
is
that
amazing.
could be coconut milk,
leave
soya
the door.
milk.
Okay. Leave the door open.
You know, basically,
It's made
you
from
can
what?
use you could make with coconut milk, or you could make with hemp
and
milk,
what is it?
fermented.
Now, had you said to me, right,
Yep.
right, I'm bringing in vegan cheese, I'd have gone, okay, I've never had this. This is interesting. Let's try. Look, the cake thing. It's got it's got peanut butter. I love peanut butter, so of course I'm going to like it. It's got peanut butter in it, right? If it came out of a
Well, I
Sunpat
didn't
jar,
know that,
I love
did
peanut
I?
butter. Yeah, peanut butter is great. I love it, right? So I understand that. Now let's get on to something more germane to Men's Radio Station, because it's all about well-being. And it's about the well-being of people. And by the way, I know you did a throwaway remark about, thanks for having a woman in. Like, we're bad. Don't forget, we've got Women's Radio Station.
I know.
No. We've
Can't
got
wait to go on there as well.
We've got Women's Radio. All in good time, Karen. Don't rush things. So the thing is that obviously we would hardly not have women because you're an expert in this field. That would be ridiculous. It's not the Algonquin Club or whatever the club, Diogenes Club or whatever club women are not allowed in. How is your health? How has your health been affected? You've been vegan for 21 years. You look healthy. I know, I'm not a doctor. So how's your health been?
You know what? I've had some different checkups, and every single one, I've been absolutely perfect. All my vitamins, everything.
Do you take supplements?
I do, because I want to invest in myself. I feel that, like Tim said, when you eat a rainbow of a diet, so all different
You look
colours.
like Judy Garland?
Yeah.
That's why I don't eat rainbows.
But all different colours, different foods, because I'm excited. I'm a really big foodie. But I want to step it up a little bit, whether that's with hemp seeds or with some wheatgrass or a really great smoothie with lots of berries in it. But from time to time, I do have maybe an iron supplement and some B12. And yeah, just different things that people kindly send me to test out. And yeah, why not? I want to invest in myself. I want to look the best I can and feel the best I can.
How can one be a foodie and be vegan? I'm being deadly serious when I say this. I know the restaurants. I know
Honestly.
the restaurants are so much better than they used to be,
Yeah.
but they weren't always.
Well,
How can one be a foodie and vegan?
You know what? Every single vegan I know, we're flipping obsessed with food. We love it. Take photos because it looks so fantastic, put a comment on afterwards. And because I'm invited to restaurants when they're launching their vegan menu. Karen, would you like to come along?
Oh, if I must, she
But I
says.
know, and it's like, for God's sake, I'm trying to be good now. Everyone's launching
If
a
I'm not
flipping
making a
vegan
smoothie,
menu.
I'll come along.
It's not just me who likes free food.
Yeah, but I mean,
No,
look, the food
Phil,
you
it's
had
mainly
there,
you who likes fruit.
it tastes great, doesn't it? And there's all new vegan options coming out, burgers, different cheeses.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
It's serious. And this is another serious question, which I've never understood. If you're against burgers, I understand why. Let's not get into the moral, angles of it. Why have something that looks like a burger if it's, why bother? And it's not a burger. It's
really,
You don't want to kill anybody to eat a
Can I just say, I
no,
could
that's not
never-
my point. No, Tim, I'm not an
that's
idiot.
the answer.
It's not an answer. Why don't you have something that looks like something different?
Okay, can I tell you what? I know that this is not more about the guests, but as a pescatarian, I think I can answer that because I eat quite a lot of corn-based products, okay? For me, I don't see, just because I don't eat meat, why I should miss out on the fun that people have when they do eat burgers and things like that. Why shouldn't I eat that?
But it's not a burger.
No, it's
So
not.
why couldn't
It's
it
not
be
no, no.
shaped like a
Incorrect.
cube? Why couldn't it
Incorrect.
be
It's not a
shaped like
burger.
something
No,
else?
it's not a burger that you would eat or you like, but it is a burger.
I hardly ever eat burgers. I rarely eat burgers.
I don't
That's
mind.
not
From
the
time
point.
to time, I like a big burger. And my thought now is, why on earth would we eat animals when we've got so much tasty vegan food?
Well,
And
there's
on-
a question.
And on that tactile and tasty note, Tim Bartford, thank you very much for coming in. Good luck with all your with your products, and good luck with your company. Karen, mystery woman, I didn't know you were coming in, but you're more than welcome.
Karen, what's your
Random-
surname?
what
so
is
we
your
actually
surname?
Karen Ridgers, and I'm part
Ridgers.
of VegFest TV and Veggie Vision.
You've
is
got a
my
television
website.
station? This is endless. Bloody endless. Well, you're very welcome, mystery guest who wandered in from the street. Thank you
Come in for a warm.
Yeah, next week, more cakes. Okay, all right. We'll be back with you with a very, very special guest, Cam Adair, who I am so excited to meet after these messages.
You're listening to Russ Kane on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Davis. I'm the proud owner of Started Cigars in Mayfair and Knightsbridge. For the past 60 years, we've been providing the world's best Cuban cigars. When it comes to cigars, there's no other than Started Cigars from Mayfair and Knightsbridge. We at Starters would like to wish Men's Radio Station every support in their task for helping men's emotional and mental well-being. Check them out. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
Let me tell you about Jermyn Street Theatre. We are the smallest theatre in the West End, only 70 seats. We are a registered charity and not grant-aided, run by a small team of volunteers and trustees. Jermyn Street Theatre is a hidden gem. It combines the comfort and convenience of the West End with the intimacy of a studio. Every seat has a perfect view of the stage, and even a whisper is audible. This is a secret theatre in the heart of the West End, once found, never forgotten.
Slick 50 Barbershop is in Westcliff-on-Sea, Essex. Elaine, specialist in retro haircuts, has been trading since 1987. Music and lifestyle are her inspiration. You can also purchase merchandise and Toot Sweet pomade. The shop is open Tuesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Please call 01702 390 916 to book your haircut. Visit barbershoprockabilly.co.uk, Slick 50 Barbershop on Instagram. Gracias.
Not ready for making tax digital? Struggling to keep up with changes? Or do you simply need a friendly and reliable face to handle your accounting needs? With over 20 years of experience, BBK Partnership in 5 London areas provide personal advice, and all our partners are readily available in person and by phone at times that suit you. Give BBK a call today, 0208 216 2520, or visit our website, bbkca.com.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
I am so excited to have my next guest in the studio. This has been something I've been looking forward to for months and months, and a big shout out to Teresa Quinlan, not just a dear, dear friend.
No shout outs.
My radio station, my rules. You're still hired. This is Men's Radio Station, where men really talk. I'm Russ Kane, and with me, joining me live in the studio, a man I've wanted to talk to for months, Cam Adair. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, no, it's our pleasure. You are like the busiest guy on the planet, because I know on Friday you were doing back-to-back interviews for how many?
It was about 15 interviews straight on BBC Radio. It was,
yeah.
By the end of the day, I was like, okay, I'm done.
It's exhausting.
By the end of the day, it was night, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that also wasn't, the day before I flew back at 6 in the morning from the U.S. On Wednesday, I had to fly back to the U.S. after being here for 2 days just to go do a gig. And
I'm really sorry. I think I've just eaten key lime pie. It's really good.
This is 20 gigs in 25 days in 4 countries.
You've done 25? Wowee.
Yeah.
Now, that's why I'm saying, if you could just stop your gourmet conversation, Phil Dave, that's why I'm so grateful that Cam's found the time. What you're doing and your background is germane to so much of what is happening in the world today. You're the founder of Game Quitter. We could talk about all this in a minute. You're a consultant for the EDGE program and something which is really very special called the Cabin Addiction Services Group. and you're accredited addictions counsellor.
Not me.
You're not.
Not that one.
You're not that one. I was just picking you up, Ken, to be perfectly honest with you. You were addicted to games.
Right.
Talk me through that, because it's something so germane to so much in my own life personally. Go on.
Yeah, so this is something I went through myself. I struggled with a video game addiction for about 10 years. And it really started, initially I was just gaming for fun. It was all good, but when I reached the 8th grade, which I believe is like 13 years old here, I began to experience a lot of bullying, and that really transformed into
You
more
were being
of an escape.
bullied at school?
Yeah, and it was horrible. It was like every day at lunch hour, kids would chase me around the school trying to put me in a garbage can.
And where was this? Which part of this?
It was in Calgary, Canada.
Wow.
And I played hockey, and so after one of our games, we were on a team bus to go back home for about 2 hours, and a kid was spitting on me for an hour of that. And for me, it's weird sharing these because you can see me right now, like I have no emotional attachment to these anymore. It's like a foreign life. But I know those are experiences I went through. I know that they were really traumatizing for me, and gaming was a really safe place for me to escape into.
If you don't mind me asking, we always have a rule here on MRS Men's Radio Station. If you find the question intrusive, just tell me to sod off. It's very simple. It's not the BBC. You can just say, shut up, I don't want to go there. Why were they picking on you? Why?
I did a whole TEDx talk trying to answer that question. For me, I don't really know. The best answer I've got to is that I've kind of always had a bit like of an aura or like a presence about me. And I feel like kids when I was younger some of them were kind of intimidated by that, and they would kind of lash out in that sort of way. And I was the kid that I would fight back enough to I never let them put me in a garbage can, ever. But I didn't turn around and punch them in the face to the point where they would stop. I was a pretty small kid. And so I fought back enough where it was a challenge for them, but not enough for them to stop.
But regrettably, in the same breath, probably, and I'm talking from personal experience myself here, it was probably in hindsight fueling the fire.
Oh, certainly. And, I think that, it's interesting because when the kid was spitting on me for an hour,
God,
I just laid there because I was just frozen. Like at that point, this stuff had been going on for so long that I just froze completely. I held on to a picture of a girl I had a crush on at the time and just kind of looked at it for a source of courage. And yesterday there was the Australian senator who got egged, right?
Yeah.
And he turned around and slapped the kid right away. And, whether or not you agree with that, no one's going to try to hit him with an egg again because they know that he's going to turn around and hit you back. And although I'm obviously not advocating for violence, I definitely don't think that I pushed back enough.
Sometimes, Cam, and I've often said this on social media, sometimes, and I know it's controversial, but direct action under those circumstances perhaps is one of the solutions. Anyway, you then went, understandably, you started to play video games because no one's going to bully you there. What were the games then? Because I know a lot of people listening are game fanatics. They love their games. My kids do. I'm
a big fan.
And James plays a lot. What were you playing?
So I played StarCraft, Brood War. I played Counter-Strike 1.6 and World of Warcraft. And when I share now to students, they're like, "Okay, Grandpa, you play video games." That's great.
Grandpa, look at that 15.
I had a 12-year-old recently say, "You didn't play Fortnite, so I don't want to talk to you." And but those were the games. It was more like the competitive games. I'm definitely more of a competitive player.
Can I just ask, what race did you play?
Zerg.
You played Zerg. I played Terran.
Okay. For heaven's sake. Sorry, can we remind you that this station broadcasts in English? Yeah.
Isn't this fantastic? I knew James would just really throwing a match on a petrol can. Whoa, gamer. Right. Now, these because I've watched my kids go through all the generations of games, and I used to play them a little bit, but then I kind of ran out of time. But when Red Dead Redemption came through, and in fact I think you met my son, one of them you met the other day in the studio. When Red Dead Redemption, he was feeling a bit blue about stuff, and I got it for him, and he just went into this world for days, and he loved it. He loved it, but I can understand that. But he had to wean him. He weaned himself off, and he was really interested. Twins are going to be 21 in June, so he really related to what you were saying. Those games are competitive against yourself. The games you're playing, and forgive me, I've never played those games. Are you playing against people online or?
I was playing against people online.
Okay.
For me, like, I was a high-level hockey player, so, you know, it was like I want to be the best, and I was going to train every single day. I took it very seriously.
And they are ultra competitive as well. I have to say that. That is kind of what I think leads into the addiction of it, is how competitive it is, these games.
So I'm just trying to draw an analogy here, because I don't know if there is one. So forgive if I'm talking out my backside. Just say you are. Is there any degree of bullying when you're playing online in a competitive environment and you thought, wait a minute, I'm replicating what happened to me on the bus coming back from the hockey game?
It's interesting because obviously cyberbullying is like a really big topic,
Awful.
especially with social media. I've had a few things go viral that were polarizing and been viciously attacked for hours. But I could also turn my computer off and go outside, and I was completely fine. Whereas I couldn't stop myself having to go to school. Lunch hour would come, and unless I went and hid, you know, this experience was going to happen. So online, I had more control over that experience. I could move to a different game, move to a different server. You know, I had a safer area, but I do believe that cyberbullying does happen, and the gaming community online is fairly toxic. It's not like the nicest kumbaya type community. You know, if you're not playing really well, you can be horribly attacked, and it can be a bit of a toxic environment.
But that control that you mentioned just now is one of the things that I was going to bring up as well, that I believe that a lot of people who play games, it's because they are suddenly in control of something, totally in control of something, actually. It's not even slightly. It's just whatever little virtual world you have entered, that is yours to command. And that makes a massive difference for when someone feels out of control in everyday life.
Yeah, and research even supports that, especially for people who have more low self-esteem. Online, they're feeling that sense of advancement, that sense of prestige. And the contrast between real life can become quite stark to the point that they begin to want to spend more time online. And it's not just control from a safety element. I also think it's control from an effort and reward standpoint. In a game, if you put effort in, you get rewards, and not just predictably, but also intermittently. And in real life, you could, you know, put a lot of effort in and not necessarily see the score change on your test.
How did your addiction manifest? Because you mentioned that you were addicted to playing games, but you haven't actually quite said in what way. Were you talking about as soon as you got up, you had to go to the computer? Was it a case of whilst you're at school, you sneak under the desk? What was it?
Yeah, I dropped out of high school. I never graduated, never went to college. I was gaming 16 hours a day.
16?
16, all day. It was basically like the best I was doing was I was waking up, you know, showering. At least my personal hygiene was still together. You know, and then eat and game until I literally went to bed.
Excuse me, were you at home at this point?
I was at home, yeah.
So I don't know anything about your private life, your personal life and your upbringing, but was there a parental figure who said, Cam, come on, you know, you've been playing on the thing, get off the computer?
Yeah, I mean, my parents tried different things. They tried different strategies. At one point, they grounded me. I grounded them back. I put passwords on the computers until I was ungrounded, so no one got to use it. You know, and then obviously that didn't work. Obviously,
hardcore.
You know, for me, it was like, you can ground me, but I'm
innocent,
coming back with vengeance somehow. Like, I would run away from home. I knew that if I scared my parents enough, they were, you know, I was very emotionally manipulative, we'll put it that way. And a good example is, at one point, they were like, if you're not going to school, you need to get a job. Yeah. And I said, you know, that's a fairly reasonable request. But working compared to gaming, why would I want to do that? And so I actually pretended to have jobs. And every day my parents thought I had a job at a restaurant. And my dad would drop me off. And as soon as he drove off, I'd walk across the street, catch the bus back home, sneak in through my window and go back to sleep. Because I'd been up all night gaming, obviously, right?
No.
And so it was literally at the point of, like, they thought I was working, but I wasn't working. I was gaming.
Did they never ask to see a paycheck?
Well, that's what happens is after about 3 weeks, they'd be like, yo, where's the paycheck? And then I'd say I quit or got fired. Or kind of any way I could kind of confuse them, which was the whole strategy. And then the next job I got was at an internet cafe, which we had those back in the day.
Of course.
And I thought this was genius because now they could drop me off at an internet cafe where technically my job would be to just play games all night. And so that's what I did. And then, you know, eventually this was at the end of, I had 5 or 6, 7 different jobs before this where I had lasted maybe a couple days, then quit.
Couple of days?
Yeah, like I would go and be like, get a job to appease my parents, then realize working sucked, quit. Then it would take like 3 weeks before they'd be like, okay, where's the next job? And, you know, I basically wore them down.
And what's really curious about this, of course, is that to anyone who denigrates gaming addictions and says, oh, please, this is not a proper addiction, this is nothing, you're actually talking about in essence, exactly what any addict would do.
Yeah.
You're talking about that cycle of wanting, no matter what, to get your hands on what you're addicted to, covering it up in whichever way you can, trying to appease the people around you just so they leave you alone and just so you can focus more time on your addiction. And yet, it's people who still say that gaming addictions is just not genuine.
You know why they say that? I'm guessing. I'm sorry, I'm putting words in your mouth. But, if you say, well, I'm a heroin addict, and then people have visions of, I don't know, French Connection, which gets another mention today, of tying your arm up with a tourniquet and then burning all this garbage and you're shoving it into your arm with a hypodermic needle. It's all looks revolting. It sounds revolting. The immediate effects are horrible. Everything about it is ghastly, right? People get that. They understand that is horrible. If you say, I'm a gaming addict, they're thinking of a beautiful large screen, flat screen TV and wandering down to any supermarket and buying a game and bosh, off you go. That seems pretty innocuous, but of course it isn't.
It's easy to see it more as a failure instead of a real problem. And, it reminds me a bit of I remember looking at homeless people back in the day and saying they're just lazy, they don't want to work, and that's why they're on the street. And in Vancouver, there was a study done that found 90% of the homeless on Hastings Street, which is the really rough area, had been sexually abused when they were younger. It completely transformed the way I saw that entire issue, because it's usually not that they can't get jobs, but they can't keep jobs. And we see something very similar in gaming addiction, where people can't keep jobs, they're really struggling. And then I hear the stories from parents, like I just had one a couple days ago. She has a 19-year-old son who is not working, not going to school, games 16 hours a day, and if she even tries to take it away or threatens to take it away, he threatens self-harm. And so for that parent, she's like, my choice is I let him continue the game, or I risk him literally committing suicide. And for that parent, she's just going to then allow it to continue.
So therein lies the £64,000 question, is how do you help someone who either A, doesn't recognize they've got a problem, or B, doesn't want to be helped?
Yeah, it's challenging. It depends on age. It depends on, history. It's a number of different things. There's a parent here in the UK who reached out, 12-year-old, who can't play Fortnite without needing to spend money, and was literally sneaking into their bedroom at night to steal their phone, to delete the payment notification from their email. But they're 12, so at that point, the parents have a lot of leverage. They can take it away. They can bring professional support involved. They can start, taking that more seriously. Some people may need to remove it completely. Some people may want to just reduce it to maybe 2 hours a day, not every day. Have game-free days as a way to earn game days. A lot of parents are now finding success no gaming Monday to Thursday, but then, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a little bit is okay. But for someone who doesn't want help, you then have to get to a point where you'll support the recovery 100%, but you won't continue to enable it.
I used to spend hours and hours playing video games when I was younger. And one of the big things that I realized is there's a whole world out there. I don't know if that means anything, but it was almost like, why am I sitting in my room when I can go out and I can skateboard, or I can play football? And that was one of the big things that I think helped me get past that step of putting 10 hours a day into playing a video game, in realizing there was more to do in life than just sit in my room and be attached to this screen. But I don't know if I was an addict like you're describing some people.
Well, most people that play are fine. It's like 97% of people who play are fine. It's fairly balanced. There's varying degrees of that, but it's about 3% who do struggle. And one of the mindsets is, just like you said, life is the ultimate video game.
Yeah.
You are the character you get to play. What skills do you need to develop? What missions do you want to go on? And I don't tend to talk about it like, level up your life. I feel like it can be pretty easy to be corny in that way. But for some people, that mindset can really be helpful.
What I wanted to ask is the guys are really asking some questions that are opening up all new avenues. But what I wanted to ask is, when you were Cam the addict, what was it that you were deriving from that? I know you were escaping from the revolting people at your school, and I just had terrible vision of when that bell rang for your, I don't know what they do in Canada, bell or whatever it is, for lunch break, that your heart must have just sunk, and you thought, I've got to get through this somehow, and the thought of having to hide is horrendous. What were you getting out of it?
I see gaming as fulfilling 4 different emotional needs. So the first is temporary escape. You're able to relax, get away from stress. You're able to numb yourself, numb your emotions. you also get social connection. Those are their real relationships. Those are real connections, very meaningful ones, if not the only ones they have. So I didn't really feel like I was missing out socially because I was socializing a lot online. I also got to see constant measurable growth, which is a feedback loop. And you get it all through instant gratification. You get to see yourself progress.
You mean you were getting better at playing the game?
I get to see myself get better. I get to see my skill improve. And then I also
and
get...
bells and whistles as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Like, you leveled up. Here's a new toy to play with.
100%. And that's all designed very intentionally. And then I also have a sense of purpose, which is you always know what to do next in the game. And games are very good at making sure you know what to do next, because if it's easy for you to know what to do next, it's easy for you to take action on it. And again, it's a sense of certainty that real life just doesn't always really have. And it's those 4 emotional needs all combined in one thing that you can do for 15 hours straight because it's so fully immersive. It's like 100% focus all in one thing that can kind of cause it to be unique in its sense, because you can't do other activities for that long without kind of being like, I can't go surfing for 15 hours straight. And playing music can be an escape. It can be, you can see your progress, but you might not see your progress as quickly, and it might not be flashing across the screen.
And there's not, when you, like, I play guitar as well, when you learn an instrument, there is no instant gratification with it. It's a real grind, and you don't really see the progress until someone says to you, oh, you're getting better at guitar. But in video games, there is like a giant progress bar in front of you that says you're doing better at this. Keep going.
Exactly.
Put more time into it and you'll get better.
With surfing, I love to surf now, and I realize I'm in England, so it's not super relatable.
Yeah.
But, when I'm surfing, and guitar would be similar, once you're over the initial learning curve, it's a lot of fun, except you could spend 3 months and feel like you're making no progress at all. Yeah. And then you see a little bit of progress, but it's like the smallest degree of progress, and you're stoked because you're realizing you're moving forward. Whereas in a video game, even if, level 1 to level 2 in World of Warcraft, it takes about 3 seconds. Level 59 to 60, that could take weeks. But all along the way, they'll show you the progress you're making towards it because it keeps you engaged.
It's even like when you walk into another area. There's a big thing flashes up on the screen. Welcome to this new place. Oh, here's some points. Go explore this area. And you think, wow, this is amazing. I'm going to go run around and do this.
You know what's interesting, James, seriously, is, and it's very indicative at the heart of all of this, is because I've known you a while now, but when you were describing that, your face is like the most animated that I'm not being my usual self here, I'm being serious, that your face was like the most animated I've seen it in weeks. You're describing it because what you're doing, of course, instantly is recollecting and seeing that thing, I guess, in your head. And it obviously gave you an enormous amount of pleasure.
I played World of Warcraft when it came out, 2004 or something like that. So I was maybe 12 years old, 13 years old. It was great. Maybe I spent a little bit too much time playing it. I won't deny that, and I'm sure my mum would agree with that.
I'll ask her next time we have dinner.
But it was such a rewarding experience, and all of the 4 things that Cam listed, I agreed with. There's a social element to it. There's that gratification to it, and I can see how easy it is to get lost in that.
So Cam, and this is a little indelicate, but hey, it's me. When you were playing for 16 hours, you weren't one of those people who didn't go to the loo, as we call them over in the UK.
Right.
You did go to the loo.
Yeah.
You did.
I mean, my personal hygiene and stuff
you didn't have
was
a
still
bottle by next to you.
No,
I know
some people do.
No, some people do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just like, you really can't stop the game for 2 minutes and go and do a wee? It's incredible.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I hear all these horror stories that... are fairly interesting just to experience. But, if you think about, to go back to the rewards, think about getting a job. You want to get a job because you're going to get money in your bank account. And research has actually now found that young men in their early 20s, their employment rates are dropping sharper than any other group. And economist Eric Hurst found that 75% of the time that they used to spend gaming is now spent work. 75% of the time that they used to spend working is now spent gaming. And
in their early 20s.
In their early 20s. Good. But it makes sense. Like, why would I go work a job when I could stay home and game? But if you think about the difference between
because they need to eat.
That's curious because that doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm sure it does to someone who's a gaming addict, but what you've just said out loud does not make any sense at all.
It's the same with an alcoholic. Why am I going to do anything else but drink? Because
it's fulfilling all their needs. And if you think about just the type of process to get a job. You have to do a resume. That's kind of not the most exciting task in the world. You apply for jobs. Eventually you get some interviews. You get rejected from most jobs you apply for. Then you go do an interview. Generally, if you're addicted to gaming, your social skills in person are probably not the most comfortable, socially anxious. Then you get a job. You work, for a couple weeks, then you get money in your bank account. That's been like a 2, 3, 4, 5 month long process just to get money in your bank account, which was your whole reason why you wanted a job in the first place. Compared to, I can turn the Xbox on right now, or I can pull out my phone, start playing, and have a ton of rewards instantly flashing across the screen.
But how do you take those rewards? And again, I'm not being overly simplistic here, and go and buy a loaf of bread in the shop.
The difference is that your brain doesn't really tell the difference between the two. And if you look into porn addiction, that's very similar, where think about the way your brain responds to seeing multiple partners on the screen compared to just making out with one partner in person. Now, we all know, I hope, that experience in person can be magnificent. It's amazing.
Can be.
But watching porn and seeing all these different partners and variety and a lot of different things, your brain actually sees that as no different than being in person with someone from a stimulation standpoint. If anything, what we're finding now is a lot of boys who are addicted to porn, who are also usually addicted to gaming, they're kind of hand in hand, no pun intended. What ends up happening is they're gaming because it's competitive. They're watching porn to feel a sense of connection. And real life, in contrast, is actually boring to their brain. Going to play music, that's not as stimulating. Going to, go on a date, not that stimulating compared to
it's not going to look like a porn film.
Exactly.
I'm guessing. But my question was, in all seriousness, again, I get all of that. Everything you've said, absolutely, and you've said it so eloquently and clearly. But they still have to eat. I mean, literally, you still do have to eat. So let's not bring in the alcoholic thing for a second. I just want to concentrate on this for a sec. So if they don't have a job, where is the funding coming from any element of their lifestyle?
A lot of times it's parents. And I have a lot of compassion for parents because it's easy to blame parents. So this happens on a couple levels. One, in the media, you constantly hear parents need to set boundaries, they need to set limits. Yeah. And okay, great, that's part of the conversation. Most video game addicts are actually young adults, not kids. Kids get the headlines, but it's young adults, usually in college, 18, 24, who begin to struggle. But for someone who's not their parent, it's easy to say, for someone who's not the parent, it's easy to say, just kick them out of the house.
So why, so you say it's easy for someone who's not the parent to say that. Why? Why is it not as
because
black
they're not
and
emotionally
white?
Attached.
But why is it not as black and white as just if you cut off the funding, if you cut off something around, like for example, if you were to cut off the broadband connection, let's get real here. You need an internet connection if you're a gamer online. If you do not pay, as a parent, that internet bill, therefore suddenly there is no internet coming in, why is that not the answer?
It's part of the answer. And I do think that when we're suggesting this, we need to make sure that we're doing it with a lot of caution, because I get the stories of we removed the Wi-Fi and my son attacked me. And my son's now refusing to go to school. And like these stories. So there is a need to make sure that if you're doing that, you're doing it with professional support involved. We have a family right now who we've worked together. She just was on BBC with us, Giovanna. And she's at a point now, 29-year-old son. And she's having to take that tough love approach where she's tried, and he's 29, and she's tried everything, and now it's funding is being cut off. Now, on some level, that can be the answer, and on the other hand, we don't necessarily want to be advocating for all of these kids or all of these young adults just ending up on the street either, because that then creates a different problem, and that's where the compassion around homelessness and some of that stuff needs to come into play.
So coming back to you, so you're playing 16 hours a day. There's clearly a massive problem here, and we're going to find out more because I'm absolutely enthralled by this. It's touching on so many areas. And this is Men's Radio Station. I'm Russ Kane with Phil Dave and James Blake. Back in just a trice.
You're listening to Russ Kane on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Davis. I'm the proud owner of Started Cigars in Mayfair and Knightsbridge. For the past 60 years, we've been providing the world's best Cuban cigars. When it comes to cigars, there's no other than Started Cigars from Mayfair and Knightsbridge. We at Starters would like to wish Men's Radio Station every support in their task for helping men's emotional and mental well-being. Check them out. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
Let me tell you about Jermyn Street Theatre. We are the smallest theatre in the West End, only 70 seats. We are a registered charity and not grant-aided, run by a small team of volunteers and trustees. Jermyn Street Theatre is a hidden gem. It combines the comfort and convenience of the West End with the intimacy of a studio. Every seat has a perfect view of the stage, and even a whisper is audible. This is a secret theatre in the heart of the West End, once found, never forgotten.
Slick 50 Barbershop is in Westcliff-on-Sea, Essex. Elaine, specialist in retro haircuts, has been trading since 1987. Music and lifestyle are her inspiration. You can also purchase merchandise and Toot Sweet pomade. The shop is open Tuesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Please call 01702 390 916 to book your haircut. Visit barbershoprockabilly.co.uk, Slick 50 Barbershop on Instagram. Gracias.
Not ready for making tax digital? Struggling to keep up with changes? Or do you simply need a friendly and reliable face to handle your accounting needs? With over 20 years of experience, BBK Partnership in 5 London areas provide personal advice, and all our partners are readily available in person and by phone at times that suit you. Give BBK a call today, 0208 216 2520, or visit our website, bbkca.com.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
MRS, Men's Radio Station. I love the way so many people say, oh, that spells Mrs. Well, you think that was an accident, right? Behind every successful man, there is an astonished woman. Where men really talk. In the studio is Phil Dave, who, yep, he's eating again. He should be the size of a size of a house by now, and rocking the desk, as always, boy wonder producer James Blake, not just producer but game player. And in the studio, very special guest, as I said. I've been waiting months to actually meet him finally. Cam Adair. So Cam, you're playing. Oh, by the way, to join us, I completely forgot. I got lost in my enthusiasm. 0203. No, that's not an English way. 0203 290 4411. That's 0203 290 4411. Or join us Facebook Live. Make a comment. Many of you have. There's some very, very funny ones there. Love the one about shaking the hand. You're not wrong. Right, Cam. So you're playing 16 hours a day. Then what's the next stage in this story? What goes on?
I wrote a suicide note.
Oh, crap.
And it was that night where I realized I need to make a change. And that night, I remember my mom made, she makes this famous like Swiss chard meatball soup, I think.
Ooh.
And I went upstairs and came down to my room, put it there, and I was writing a note in like Notepad to like 12 people in my life who meant something to me. And the only one I really remember was my dad. And then a friend texted me. Her name's Ainsley. And she said, hey, Cam, a couple friends and I are going to go see the movie Superbad tonight. Do you want to come with us? And I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds like a lot of fun. And we went and we smoked a bunch of pot, went to see the movie. And if you remember that movie, it was like a funny comedy.
Yeah.
And I kind of went from like writing this note over dinner to laughing and smiling and being stoned at the movie theater. And it was that shift in my state that kind of made me realize like I was actually a danger to myself at this point. And
how did you feel? And I'm sorry, this is slightly off-piste, as we like to say in Europe, what's left of it.
Is this still Europe or?
Hey, Easy, Mr. Canada. Easy.
I've been trying to make a Brexit joke the whole time
Canuck.
I've been here.
There is
People are
no
warning me. Do not.
Cam, let me tell you something. Brexit, the politicians have made the joke. We are the laughing stock, and none of us are happy. It's the worst. And I can't even start. I have to talk about this on the BBC, and I go insane.
It's triggered them.
It's just, it's just awful. It's just a bunch of snake oil salesmen who've just sold us a pile of crap, basically. Right. Calm. Back in the room.
No, Cam.
Shut up. Shut up. I bet he's finished all the food. When you came back, you're happy, you're giggly, you've seen a funny film, you're stoned off your face, and then you thought, I was going to kill myself. Mm-hmm. Did you, at that point, I'm not talking about you, did you then think, what would the effect have been on my parents? There she's made me her special soup, my mum, and she could have found me dead in the room. How was that like the biggest slap in the face? Or did you feel, and I'm guessing here, so forgive me, I know it's sensitive, did you feel guilty? Did you feel stupid? What went through your mind?
The first time I ever said I was going to kill myself, I was in the 6th grade. And it was actually a way to get out of detention. I was just kind of like...
Out of detention?
So you said that out loud then?
Yeah, well, what happened was this teacher was like, you have detention. And I was like, okay. And then I remember he brought me to the detention room or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because I'm going to kill myself. And he was like, what? And of course, someone in the 6th grade, this is like, 11 years old? 11-year-old saying that sort of thing, instantly it's like you're going to the therapist office and you're held hostage basically until they feel comfortable about it. And I remember instantly being like, that was a mistake, because I wasn't actually serious about it. I think on some level I was probably trying to express like I was like really unhappy or like something was going on, but
cry for attention almost.
Anyway, so my mom and dad get called into the office. And I'll never forget sitting there, my mom's looking at me and she's like tears in her eyes being like, why would you feel that way? And like, we've tried to give you everything and like, you feel this way. Like, how is that even possible? And the look in my mom's eyes has never left me. And I wrote her a note because last year on Mother's Day in May, I sat at train tracks for 4 hours, like on the verge of doing it. But last year. Yeah, suicide for me has always been something I've really struggled with. Since that day, I've felt amazing because
so
that
you're
day
sitting by the. I had no idea of this. I didn't know, and this is oh my gosh. So you're sitting by the train in Canada, I'm presuming.
I was in San Diego.
Oh, well, at least it's somewhere nice. So make the best of the situation. So you're sitting by the train tracks, contemplating throwing yourself under the express train. I'm assuming. Wow.
And
why?
Were you scared?
I don't know about scared. It was more like, am I actually going to do it? And, we could dive all into it. Suicide for me has been a big topic throughout most of my life. And I always have to be aware of, like, when am I just, like, thinking of it as, like, a form of anxiety, like, oh, I want to escape, versus when am I planning it and planning to do it.
Did you think... and again, I'm sorry, I'm being indelicate. This is really going to hurt. It's something that I've touched on in a novel I've got coming out next month. But did you think, I'm going to throw myself in front of a train? That's really going to hurt. Did that go through your mind at all?
Well, interestingly enough, I think here in the UK, I was talking to someone the other day, and men in the UK tend to do it by train because they want the instant. Even though it's actually not guaranteed, which
that's what
I'm
thinking. I mean,
I'd never do it. But women tend to do more the like sleeping pills, painless sort of way, whereas men kind of want the instant. And
also on that subject, I'm sorry to interrupt, but anyone who might be listening
100%.
who has this thought, it's important to actually note a couple of things. Obviously, please seek help. Please, 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 above everything else, seek help. But I was actually unfortunate enough to be at a train station when I saw someone throw themselves in front of a train, okay? And I didn't actually see the moment, but I saw the aftermath, and my goodness me, I don't want to see that, never mind the actual moment. But the chap who was one of the station guards said to me, and for some reason this has just never ever left my mind, and I don't know why, because I thank goodness, and all those superstitious stuff that you can do. I've never had suicidal thoughts, and thank goodness for it. But he said to me, I don't know why people do that. He said the only thing you're guaranteed is to cause yourself serious injury. You're not guaranteed to end it all. So on top of feeling as depressed as you are, or as suicidal as you are, because it's wrong to assume it's just depression that actually makes you feel like that, they said that you will also end up with some sort of serious deformity or serious injury. So it's not even a guaranteed way of ending it all.
Exactly. And that picture of my mom looking at me being like in so much pain, I've just always known like my parents would never come back from that. And nor would any parent, I think.
Are you an only child?
Middle child, wild child.
The yeah. But you,
I'm the wild
you do you're wild one. But you do appreciate they would never come back from that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's kept me alive.
Because for you, it would have been over, and for them, the rest of their life is destroyed because you would never bounce back from that. It's
100%.
impossible because you've already touched on something, Cam, when you're sitting in the principal's office and you've been called in because you threatened the suicide because you got detention. They're already saying, but we did everything for you, and they clearly love you. They're not like 100%. Horrible, but you're not sitting there and you'd never allude to they're really horrible people, Russ. You'd hate them. They sound
my parents are amazing.
They sound great. So you've been blessed because we've had people coming into this studio and their lives have been, God, I mean, you would get on your knees and pray to whatever you prayed to, never to be that person because their lives have been disgusting.
Exactly.
Horrible.
And I wrote a letter to my mom that day. I was just about to turn 30 years old. And I said, it was the look in your eyes that's kept me alive. And like my vow on this Mother's Day is I will never end my life. And that's my commitment to you. But just to go back, when I wrote the suicide note and then went to go see the movie and came home, I asked my dad to help me find a counselor. And of course he said yes. Yeah. And this counselor ultimately gave me a really powerful choice, which was you either have to get and keep a job or go on antidepressants. Now for me, I've just never felt like antidepressants were the answer for me. Not that, I know they're very effective for a lot of people and some people certainly probably need them. For me, it just wasn't something I always felt like I would never come off of them. And so I got a job. And that really gave me structure and stability and a feeling of a second chance.
What job did you get?
I was working at H&M, the retail store, in the kids' department.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, the commitment, though, was if I'm not ending my life, I'm doing the complete opposite, which was to truly try to live it to the fullest. Because I was curious, like, what would happen if I took 16 hours a day I was putting into gaming and put it into other goals and dreams I had? What could I make of myself?
It's amazing how much you can do, right?
It's amazing what you can do. And for me, it was, if in the event that I was actually successful, I might as well start today. Because I want to see how far I can go. And it's been about 10 years. My life now is a weird life. I mean, I travel all over the world. I speak, we'll have 800 parents show up to hear me speak in Australia. I was just speaking in Lebanon. I go to Finland and Hong Kong, Japan this year. I go to Tanzania every year. Like, it's a weird life. I did 15 interviews on BBC the other day. Like,
on Friday?
Like it's kind of a surreal experience.
But what you're also saying, it's two things. One is that you, A, turned your life around. B, it's amazing when you can stop doing other things and throw yourself into actual positive stuff, what you can achieve. But C, because you're speaking worldwide, it means it's a global problem.
Oh, yeah. We have members in 95 countries and on GameCores.com, and we have countries represented that would blow your mind. Like, we have Zimbabwe represented, and I went to Tanzania. I go every year. It's one of my favorite places, and there's a member from Tanzania who realized I was there, and he's like, I would take the train 16 hours to come and meet you. We've had members from Syria and Iran and Iraq.
Really?
All over the world.
Because I know this is awful, but if you only get your view from the BBC News or whatever, you just think, well, there's nothing left in Syria, and yet there's gaming addiction as if there wasn't enough.
Well, Zimbabwe as well, like all, like these different countries, and now it's because you can game on your phone, and pretty much everyone now around the world, like people have phones, and about 10% of our members are from the UK, and that's the third biggest country that's represented.
The
so
UK.
It is a big problem here.
Have you had any other parts of your life suffer as a result? You've already spoken about your health. But what about, say, when it comes, and again, golden rule here on Men's Radio Station, if we're prying, tell us to shut up. But has this say, impacted on potential relationships because you've just been so much time has been focused on the gaming that you haven't necessarily gone down that particular route?
Yeah, I mean, I remember gaming was a way. I remember being in relationships, and I remember one of my relationships, I think, we were fighting or something, and I hadn't been gaming for quite a while. And I was like, you know what? I'm checking out. I'm gaming. And I started gaming. And then I remember my girlfriend called me, and I ignored it because I was like, I'm playing games. I don't care. And the next day she was like, we're breaking up and it's done. And I was so numb to the entire experience. I didn't even care because I was gaming. But
do you care in hindsight?
Oh, no, I cared like a couple days later when I kind of snapped out of it for a moment and was like, oh, she's gone and she's not coming back. And one of our members just testified in front of the Commons Committee on Addictive and Immersive Technologies, Mattis, and he shared too that for him, when he realized his gaming was out of control was when he was losing a relationship or lost a relationship. And it is something I hear often, not just for young men, but also people 25 plus.
What about relationships that blossom through gaming?
Yeah, it certainly can happen. And I think for the conversation, it's so important. And I'm really big on this, that like, it's not about, the black and white. It's not gaming is good and gaming is bad. It's both coexist. And, I know there's a researcher in Las Vegas who I'm a big fan of, and she had she talks a lot about gambling, and she actually met her husband through that experience. And so it actually, she describes herself as the one person that gambling actually ended up being a really positive thing for. And, she talks a lot about gambling addiction as well. And so it can be really positive. And that's why for anyone listening, it's always about what's your relationship like to gaming, or what's your relationship like to social media or gambling or any of these things. And do you need to switch it? Do you need to shift it? Do you want to stop forever? That's a personal choice. For me, I know gaming is very easy for me to like just escape.
I think it's like any addiction. People can go and enjoy a drink, and there's other people who will sit there and drink themselves to death. And it's just all about knowing, where your boundaries are and how you find your balance.
Exactly.
What is that balance? Out of wild curiosity, seriously, what is the balance?
Good question, Phil,
at what time do you think, okay, I'm addicted, or no, I've just got a real keen enthusiasm for my hobby?
The two biggest things that you want to kind of look for are continuing to use despite negative impact and impaired control. Those are the two biggest signs.
What is that?
So if you're continuing to game, yet you're failing school, you've lost your job, you're losing your relationship, yet you continue to game despite all of that.
And when you're in the thick of that, do you recognize that? Is it possible to see what's happening around you?
It's hard.
Sometimes. We did a study with Dr. King and found that 84% of game quitters who met criteria for gaming addiction knew they had a problem over 12 months ago, yet just hadn't done anything about it yet. And so usually we do kind of know it's a problem, but we may not also recognize the harm to ourselves because we're like, well, I don't really care about school, so whatever. But we may not be, we may have a poor perception of the long-term consequences, and we may not be paying attention to the harm on those around us.
Something happened to me yesterday that I would really like to talk to you about. And these guys don't know about it, but I have a client on a completely different project. And this particular client, I'm not mentioning it, always sends me little funny clips and little cartoony things and everything like that, and sent me what I assumed was a first-person shooter game thing, a clip. And it was first thing in the morning, and I hadn't switched on the news or anything, and I have to check my messages because this particular person is a client, so I want to make sure that everything's okay. Somebody I'm, if you like, mentoring. And so I'd watched a little bit of this, and then that was on my phone, and then I looked at my screen, and I saw the news, and to my horror, I realized that I was watching the appalling, terrible event that this lunatic had done with his live helmet cam when he went to the mosque in New Zealand. I stopped watching immediately because I felt physically sick. It was the first massacre, I think, that's ever been live televised.
What a great clip to send to someone, by the way.
I mean, it was the whole thing. I mean, it was
Start
just
your day.
what
Here,
a way
watch
to start.
this.
There was no warning. I just assumed, because the rest of it's all little funny cartoons. I didn't know what it was. I obviously would never disseminate it again. But what I was going to say is, it looked exactly like. And this is the horror of it. This is the true horror of it. It looked exactly like any of those first-person shoot 'em up games that you can see. There was virtually no difference. It was impossible to tell the difference. Except, of course, this was real, and real people were being murdered. How desensitizing do some games make humans?
There was a new study out of Oxford that has found there's no link between aggression and video games, violent video games. And I think generally that research has been, over time, the violent video games linked to violence and that sort of thing has been very inconclusive overall. The main thing is that, and you experienced that on social media and through games, that you're not necessarily developing empathy. And so if I see you online, you're a username, you're an avatar, you're not necessarily a real person. Like what people say to me on YouTube, they would never say to my face, not only because I'm extremely buff, but also because I'm not for anybody. No one can see, but I'm like 150 pounds solid. But the difference is they can see I'm a real person.
Yeah.
And so you just wouldn't say like, go jump off a cliff with cement tied to your shoes, or these sorts of things that people comment to me on YouTube.
But it's interesting. Why you're not afraid to express your opinion, but in a proper, realizing, decent conversational manner. What is the trigger for them? No pun. It's the wrong word. I'm sorry. But what is causing them to be so outraged by you? What are you saying? Because having met you now for 45 minutes, I've read your stuff.
I mean, the video. If you attack the video game community, it's a very vocal community, isn't it?
Is that what it is?
Well, there's a few things that
I think attack's the wrong word. Sorry.
Yeah, no, there's a few things. So overall, I actually see myself as an advocate for healthy gaming. And most gamers, when they actually come across me and what I actually share, they don't have any problem with it. There's some researchers who have a big problem with it, and ultimately, I think their problem is that they're losing this debate. And having lost a debate in the World Health Organization, they're now trying to change their strategy to attack prominent people who are speaking out about this. And, I'm not like the traditional researcher.
You're really not. When I saw we were doing this interview, I thought, oh, God, because I like my video games. But after chatting with you, I can see that you're just coming from a good place where you've had bad experiences.
Like, for instance, traditionally, you have to go to therapy or you have to go to in-person treatment. And although I believe, like, those should exist, most people who need help won't actually go to those services. And so we have this free community that's very large, that's helping a lot of people.
How many people are in your community?
It's 75,000 people a month right now.
A
in
month?
95 countries.
Wow.
And it's growing rapidly.
Wowee.
Like, it's growing very quickly.
And this was how did it all start?
Well, I shared my story in 2011, and I started hearing from tens of thousands of people all over the world saying that they too were struggling.
You shared it on
Where? I was going to say, where did you share it?
I shared it on like some random personal development blog I had.
Seriously?
But, yeah, people would search how to quit playing video games into Google. They'd find my article, and they'd write me a 1,000-word essay, and they'd be 12 years old. But the key was they were asking for help. They weren't saying my mom's forcing me to get help. They were like, I can't stop playing, and I want help. And
I've been there.
Right.
Yeah, I've been there.
Sometimes people are even like they're watching my TED Talk or something while playing video games, right? And the key, though, was they were asking for help.
Slightly ironic.
And for me, I've just always been a big believer in if someone's asking for help, we should respond by saying, how can we help? And so I'd say that, and they'd say, oh, well, I don't know what else to do with my time. And so I'd say, okay, well, here's a list of 70 different ideas. Or they'd say, I'm going to lose all my friends. And I'd say, okay, well, here's some tips on making new friends. Like, for me, it's not like these are the most incredible advice ever. It's kind of common sense and just it's helpful for people to kind of take a step forward.
Speaking of, I'm so sorry, speaking of step forward and also speaking of getting people the help that they need, Ian has said on Twitter, in 1971, my brother Robert drank weed killer. Ooh. It took him weeks to die. I watched my mother die a little each day after that, and she was never the same again. Suicide might bring peace to the dead, but the living live with the why.
Wow.
And what a comment. I mean, seriously, if you need any...
Ian, thank you for sharing that.
If
That
you
is-
need any
it's a bit
reason
emotional.
as to why you should just think before you take action, that sums it up, really.
Yeah, and things can turn around. And ultimately, what's interesting for me is that so much of the focus in interviews and stuff is always on my story. And I understand that. But when people see my story, what they really just see is themselves. And I hear this all the time from gamers who come forward. They say, yeah, Cam's story was my story. And they see themselves, and then they also see that they can, be able to move things, improve their lives. And that's why I do what I do.
Speaking of your story, sorry, Ross, but speaking of your story, the powers that be have whispered in my ear, and apparently there are talks with you. We're allowed to mention this, apparently. Talks with you about trying to put together some sort of conference, the first of its kind, potentially with German Street Theatre. Can you tell us a bit about sort of how you do physically sort of help people when you do appear, where you appear?
Well, I speak to a lot of different audiences. I speak to students, I speak to parents, I speak to mental health professionals. And all those audiences are a little bit different, but I do this all over the world. And currently in the UK, I've been speaking at schools, and there's a parent talk coming up this week. But these are kind of private events, working with schools. They're putting it on kind of for their audience. But I'm getting a ton of emails from people in the UK saying, hey, how do I get tickets to the event? How do I do this or whatever? And I know there's a huge demand, not just here, but everywhere. And so, yeah, it was kind of brought as an offer that next time I'm in the UK, we should do a public event.
And you'll be coming on the radio again, that's for sure.
Yeah, of course. Happy to come and do a public event and just give people the opportunity to be able to learn more about it.
How long are you staying for this trip?
I leave Thursday.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. And the rest of your week is
I'm slammed.
I'm slammed.
Yesterday.
So is that some transatlantic diatribe for you're busy?
I'm swamped. Is that swamped?
Oh, I'm
absolutely
swamped.
Swamped. Yeah, I'm swamped.
I'm complicit in my schedule.
Sometimes I describe myself as I'm drowning. I'm just trying to stay alive. But it's this is the first time. It's been interesting. It's the first time I've ever given someone access to my schedule to fill it in whatever way they kind of please, with some insight from me. And what I'm doing in the UK, if I was in charge of my schedule versus what other people who are in charge of my schedule, not that I'm complaining, but just it's been very different. So I've been like hour by hour doing this, and this. Whereas for me, I'd have like an immense amount of free time and kind of opportunities to flow around. So it's been really great, especially because I'm able to come here and do this sort of thing. But
how have you found gaming over here? Is you're saying we're the third biggest
country
largest represented? Is there any particular reason why are we depressed? Do we need escapism?
Well, I'd say it's similar to Canada in the sense that the excuse is it's cold, can't go outside, can't do anything else. Yeah. And on one hand that's true, but on the other hand, before computers and technology, millions of people lived in London and dealt with the cold and managed to do it just fine.
It's not. I mean, it's not like Boston cold or Vancouver cold. It's not
so
like Toronto cold. Or Chicago cold. It's London cold, which is no big deal. I mean, it's not like my
God. Speak for yourself. I'm freezing.
Are you finding it really cold?
I'm freezing.
Really?
I'm freezing.
And you're Canadian.
But where do you live now?
Well, I spent like 4 years living in California.
Oh, thank you very much.
And
well, thank you.
Now I spend a lot of time. I'm either in Thailand, or Australia.
Oh, well.
And so
no wonder
here
you
right
think
now,
this is cold.
Oh, I've been freezing.
This is rubbish. I've got loads and loads of friends. Spent a lot of time in California myself. I've got a lot of friends there, and it drives me mad. And they will go, "Hi, how's the weather?" And they're always in a t-shirt, and I'm going like, off.
Yeah.
It drives me insane.
The California blood is really it
is so thin.
If it's under like 23 degrees Celsius, I'm freezing.
I know, because you go out for dinner and go, oh, I'm shit. And I'm outside and going, this is the greatest. I'm having like a fabulous salad.
Old money, by the way, that's about 56 Fahrenheit, something like that.
And they're going, how can you say that? Should we go inside? Should we go inside? I said, you're wearing 2 sweaters. What's the matter with you?
As we are wrapping up the hour and coming to the end of the interview, there is one thing, and we have come a bit off topic, there is one thing I do want to talk to you about, which is I feel like video gaming is very good at instilling work ethic in people. I think because there's lots of goals that need to be achieved, and especially some of the more competitive ones, you have to put a lot of work into those to get very good, and you have to do lots of research, and you actually have to do lots of stuff outside of the video game to get good at it. Now, do you think that's true or not?
Absolutely. And
It's like chess,
That's a
for example.
fascinating thing.
the interesting thing for me is that to get good at games, any gamer who's really serious, they're doing a number of things to get good. So first, they're playing a lot. They're very consistent, and they're very intentional in how they play. They're watching other people play. They're maybe even hiring people. I hired a coach at one point to help me get better. I'm reviewing my games. I'm doing all sorts of...
Sorry. You really threw that away. You hired someone to help you.
Well, and to give you an idea...
So have I.
What the
So
hell?
have
We've
I.
stepped into a parallel universe.
I hired
Wow,
someone, a
this is
professional,
mesmerising to me.
to sit down with me.
Yeah.
Just like you'd hire a golf pro to sit
Sorry,
there
can
and
I
go
ask?
over the
All right,
swing.
I'm going to be impertinent. How much did it cost you? Sorry.
Oh, I mean, something regular, like maybe $100 an hour or something.
£50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's far more. Now parents are hiring coaches for their kids
Oh,
to
stop
be the
it.
next esports player. And the biggest thing, though, to get back on the point, is that gamers are very intentional in how they get good at games, but they don't always draw the parallel that those same systems and mindsets can apply to anything else in life.
Yes.
Whereas for me as a hockey player, I was constantly taught that how we got good at hockey was going to apply to business and apply to everything else. And the gaming skill does apply to everything else, but only if you draw that parallel yourself.
I think that's where a lot of video game players go wrong. Is that
Exactly.
They don't, and that's kind of where it turns into an addiction, because they think I've only got this set of skills that I can use in this one world, and that is my world. But really, I think if they realised they could take all this work and effort and energy and all this, like paying people to coach me, going over the games, looking at ways I lay out my computer, if they just applied that to some other stuff, they'd be just
if you'd only apply it to producing.
I'm learning photography now, and I'm doing a lot of those same things, like trying different things. So.
Cam, it's been absolutely it's been as fascinating as I was hoping it would
How
be.
did you first hear about me? You said a couple months ago. I'm curious where that was.
Through Teresa.
Okay.
It was a long-term
your
friend.
name.
We'll do this
I
off air.
wanted to,
It's been a while.
if
Okay.
people want to get hold of you, how do they do that?
GameQuithers.com. There's tons of free resources for people. There's a contact form if you want to get in touch. But GameQuithers.com is where people can go. And for young adults, 18 to 24, if you're really concerned about a problem, theedgerehab.com.
You're a marvel, sir.
Absolutely, Cam. It's been an absolute pleasure. From me, Russ Kane, from Phil Dave, and from James Blake. This is Men's Radio Station. Till we meet again, stay safe.